Chapter 26. I have something to take care of. Tommy was talking about his plan to travel during the holidays. Seeing that Levi's face was not very good, he could only silently help him with good luck. Get on the motorcycle, press the red button, the exhaust pipe will burst into flames, and rush towards Manhattan quickly. Along the way, Levi had already seen the military evacuating the people. The people fled in panic. They must have been frightened in a panic. Going in the opposite direction, Levi could only slow down for safety. The military had set up a cordon, and Levi was stopped. The soldier warned, "Young man, it's too dangerous inside. Go back quickly." Levi had no choice but to call Nick Fury. When he told Nick Fury about being blocked, Nick Fury's irritable voice came from the other end of the phone, "If you mess with FK, these soldiers will only cause a lot of trouble." The call was hung up, and only 2 minutes had passed. The soldiers at the front quickly opened the barricade and put Levi in, while expressing their apologies. Although he could transform and break in directly, there was currently no conflict between the two sides. On the contrary, Tony and the military were still in the honeymoon period due to the previous war machine, so there was no need to cause unnecessary trouble. After crossing the cordon and turning a block, you could see thick smoke billowing not far away. A few streets away, fires were shooting into the sky, and the raging flames were burning mercilessly. The streets were already deserted. Li Wei followed the sound and saw that the building above his head was smashed, and two giants, one yellow and one green, rushed out of the building. It was the Abomination and the Hulk. In midair, Abomination grabbed the Hulk's neck and punched the opponent's face with one punch after another. The severe pain caused the Hulk to roar angrily with red eyes. The two giant beasts falling overhead were inevitable. Levi took out the white memory and quickly plugged it into the lost drive. Eternal. A capital yellow letter E appeared directly in front of the drive. With the other hand, he pulled down the memory. The memory slid sideways, and the letter E also turned to the right. The eternal sound effect came from the drive again, and the surrounding wind seemed to gather here. Countless white fragments gathered together with the wind. Immediately afterwards, white fragments condensed on Levi's body. As a ray of light flashed, Levi was surrounded by a white outer armor. The three-pronged decoration on his head made his height even higher. The cloak behind his back fluttered in the wind, and his arms were dark blue. But he shook his hand casually, and the blue flame suddenly bloomed, leaving the burning lines of the blue flame on his forearm. As Levi called, a dagger appeared in his hand. Insert the eternal memory into the eternal dagger, and the sound effect of eternal maximum drive came out. Just when the two giant beasts were about to smash their faces, the blue flame ignited on the dagger and turned into a long knife. As Levi swept across, just listen to a boom. The blue flame explosion instantly covers the Abomination and the Hulk. The Hulk and Abomination were both blown away, and Abomination was the first to land. Abomination's back was torn and bruised with extensive burns. The Hulk was only injured on his arm, and it seemed that Levi's attack just now was blocked by Abomination. "Who are you? Damn you!" Hatred roared angrily and attacked Levi, and every step he took made the ground shake. Undaunted, Levi pulled out the eternal memory on the dagger and inserted it into the slap slot on his waist. Then he jumped up high and landed directly behind Abomination. He kicked Abomination in the back with a roundhouse kick and knocked Abomination to the ground. The energy is transferred into the eternal dagger, and a cross is cut out, and the blue energy blade hits the Abomination's back directly. Phew! In an instant, the hateful flesh was cut open and even the white bones could be seen. Just as Levi was about to continue the attack, "Shit monster! Mine!" roared along with a slap. Levi, who had heard the movement earlier, covered his head with both arms and defended in advance, but he was still slapped away. Levi turned around in midair, staggered and almost fell when his feet landed on the ground. The Hulk's power really refreshed his understanding. Shaking his arm, Levi watched as the Hulk and Abomination continued to fight over there. The Hulk becomes more courageous as he fights, but Abomination is at a disadvantage due to his injuries. The punch-to-flesh attack dazzled Abomination. Seeing that the two were about to fight, Levi slapped the slot with one hand and jumped up as the sound effect came. The blue flames on the feet wrap around like a whirlpool. The knight kicked Abomination on the neck, only to hear a click and a cracking sound. Abomination rolled his eyes and fell to the ground. Abomination fainted, but the violent Hulk stopped fighting. His red eyes stared at the little man with white armor and black cloak in front of him. The Hulk punched extremely fast. Levi quickly raised his hand, fully prepared this time, but the huge amount of power still made Levi take a few steps back. My strength has become much stronger. Can feel the Hulk's strength increase. In that case, use this. Levi pulled out the eternal memory and reinserted it into the lost drive, and then inserted the ace memory into the slap slot. Joker. Maximum drive. Levi ducked to avoid Hulk's slap, then slapped the slot with one hand. His right fist was wrapped with purple-black flames, and he punched the Hulk in the armpit. Ah! The Hulk was in pain, covering his arm and retreating repeatedly. His grinning expression was like Tony's little toe kicking the leg of the sofa. Levi would not miss this opportunity. Taking advantage of the victory, he jumped up and grabbed the Hulk's shoulders with both hands, raised his knee and hit the Hulk's chin. Bang! The Hulk went crazy, ignoring the pain, grabbing Levi with both hands and trying to tear him into pieces. But with the bonus of the ace memory, Levi forcefully opened the Hulk's grip. He thrust out his fist, stretched out 2 fingers, and thrust them straight into the Hulk's eyes. Phew! This time, the Hulk lost all his madness. Instead, he covered his eyes and howled in pain. Chapter 27. The Hulk's strength will increase as his anger rises. This characteristic is a good thing for his own people, but not good news for his enemies. It just so happened that Levi was now hostile to the other party. Dangduan continues to suffer the chaos. Use your ultimate move. Levi pulled out the ace memory and flicked it, and the black ace memory turned into a white memory. Insert the white memory into the slap slot and press quickly. As the sound effect of Zone Maximum Drive was activated, Levi felt a surge of breath in his body, and the pleasure of increasing strength made him scream loudly. Suddenly, more than 20 T2GM memories appeared around Levi, and they all entered the free slots on his body. Zone Maximum Drive XL, Bird, Cyclone, Dummy, Fang, Gene, Heat, Ice Age, Joker, Key, Luna, Metal, Nazca, Ocean, Puppeteer, Queen, Rocket, Skull, Trigger, Unicorn, Violence, Weather, Extreme Yesterday, Maximum Drive. The green cyclone poured into Levi's body, and after a while, a light green aura emitted from the whole body. The Hulk roared with red eyes, jumped up and rushed towards Levi, but the green cyclone swept him away and let him hit him. In front of a building. Levi, whose strength had been raised to the limit, felt as if his body was going to explode. Entering the strongest form of blue flame for the first time, he didn't expect this feeling. From the bottom of my heart, I felt like I could tear the sky apart, conquer the earth, I am my ancestor, etc. Crazy thoughts swept through my mind endlessly. Injecting as much energy as possible into the Eternal Dagger, he did not stop until the Eternal Dagger trembled slightly. The blade of the Eternal Dagger turned green, the energy blade extended to more than 10 meters, and it slashed out at the Hulk. Whoosh! Sharp tearing air sounds spread to the surroundings, stinging the eardrums. The Hulk stared, spread his hands flat on his shoulders, and suddenly clapped his hands. The air was squeezed in his palms, creating violent air waves, trying to tear up the incoming green blade light. However, the speed of the sword just weakened, and the sword struck the Hulk on the shoulder. The shoulder was torn, blood spattered, and the bones were exposed before his eyes. The Hulk's body shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye, and soon returned to normal human form. Dr. Banner staggered and collapsed to the ground, with blood pouring from his shoulders. Isn't this possible? Levi slowly walked towards Banner, the doctor he once respected. After being released, the energy in the body was no longer violent, and Levi's reason prevailed. Just when Levi was about to take Banner away, a helicopter flew into the sky, and an officer shouted through a loudspeaker, "People on the ground, listen, now you are the culprits causing the damage to Manhattan, you need to come back to me. Air Force Command accepts sanctions." "Dad, Banner is still on the ground." "Oh my God, he was seriously injured." A woman on the plane looked at the ground anxiously. "Noisy." Levi just glanced at the helicopter, waved the Eternal Dagger, and the green energy light flew over there instantly. Bah! Suddenly, a feeling of joy surged into his heart. Levi was startled, then lowered his head and looked at the eternal memory plugged into the lost drive. It seems like eternal memory is happy. The tail of the helicopter was cut off, and the unbalanced helicopter began to sway and was about to fall. "Quick! Inform the ground troops that Bruce Banner and the white criminal must be captured at all costs." General Ross's crazy voice could be heard even when the helicopter was about to crash. The helicopter tilted to one side and disappeared among the tall buildings. Levi held Dr. Banner in one hand, jumped up and jumped back and forth between tall buildings, rushing towards the Stark building. What a terrifying power! The red-haired beauty couldn't help but sigh while standing next to the monitor. The cold-faced man next to her nodded in agreement, and then asked, "Natasha Romanoff, what kind of technology is his equipment?" "Clint, you know I can't ask any more questions now, after all, we've only been in contact for a short time." Phil Coulson commented without hesitation, "This kid is very cautious. If he can be in S.H.I.E.L.D, he must be a very good agent." The ability he showed completely surpassed that playboy. That playboy would trust a relative of his to use something stronger, while he himself would use a more cumbersome steel battlesuit. Hawkeye obviously saw the problem. He can see it, and others can naturally see it, but Tony just claims that he made the Kamen Rider armor, so what can others do? Phil Coulson whispered, "The director has known this for a long time, but he has never exposed it in front of Tony Stark." Natasha Romanoff nodded, "After all, that playboy is now our consultant." Hawkeye asked, "So the purpose of letting you get close to Levi Stark is to find out the source of that equipment?" Natasha Romanoff looked serious, "You can't just ask about other agents' missions. This is the rule, Clint." Then she added, "It's definitely to see if the two Starks are qualified to participate in the plan." Hawkeye looked surprised when he heard this. Levi, who returned to the Stark building, released his transformation, and all the strength in his body immediately dissipated. Dr. Banner, who was under his arm, also rolled to the ground. The pain caused Banner to wake up from a coma with an ouch. Levi held his hand against the wall and gasped for breath. He didn't expect that using a spatial memory to enter the strongest mode would have such great side effects. Was it empty? Bucky walked over with an indifferent expression. Levi waved his hand, pointed at Banner on the ground and said, "Take him to treatment, I'm just a little tired." But Bucky looked disgusted. "Why don't you go to the hospital to suture a wound like this and bring it back?" "Take him to the hospital 1 second, and I'm afraid he will be taken away by the military the next." Bucky looked indifferent. "What can I do if I give it to them?" "No, I just want to disgust them. These domineering people really disgust me." Levi made no secret of his disgust. "I'll sew him up." Bucky grabbed Banner's neck and lifted him up. "I hope your suturing skills won't make him faint from the pain." Bucky seemed to be remembering something and said, "I forgot, the infirmary was destroyed last time when the building was invaded." "Forget it, when we participated in World War II, we used strong alcohol to clean wounds." He didn't look back after saying that. "The ground is gone." Levi walked into a room holding on to the wall and slumped on a stool to recover his strength. Meanwhile, on the other side, "I refuse General Ross's order. This is against the regulations." Rhodes hung up the phone sternly. The captain beside him asked cautiously, "Is this okay, Minister? This is the third time you have been dispatched. What does it have to do with me? I can break into the Stark building and arrest people." Rhodes continued indifferently, "Not to mention the agreement with Tony, but why does he, an Air Force general, command my weapons research and development department?" "Minister." "And no one from the army cooperated with General Ross's actions. No one dared to arrest people in the Stark building, and they knew the target was there." General Ross was so angry that his nostrils were greatly enlarged, and his face was covered in black stains. Not long after he climbed out of the crashed helicopter, when he asked his old comrades, no one was willing to cooperate with him in capturing Bruce Banner and the White Man. Armored Man. Only after asking this question did he understand. Everyone knew who the man in white armor was, and his code name was Kamen Rider. It was also the work of Tony Stark, and the person wearing it was Tony's cousin. Originally, he wanted to ask his subordinates to surround the Stark building together. After all, the source of the disaster was really hiding there. Who knew that news suddenly came from above? Tony Stark's lawyer's letter had been sent, asking Ross to return to the Air Force headquarters immediately. This would make things worse. General Ross blew his beard angrily and stared. "One of your own has been robbed, and you still have to be accused. Is there any royal method? Is there any law?" The helpless General Ross could only leave Manhattan with hatred. Chapter 28. That night, Levi fell into a deep sleep. Eternal was originally suitable for dead men with special physical conditions like Katsuki Dato, so Levi would feel heavy-headed after using it. Part of Jia's memory has its own consciousness, and eternity affects Levi to a greater or lesser extent. In a daze, Levi felt that his body was weightless and he forced his eyes open. Stars were dotted around him, as if he had arrived in the universe. A familiar figure faced him, but disappeared after just a smile. Levi opened his mouth but no sound came out. Looking around, Levi was startled. The surrounding stars and planets seemed to be under a curtain. Is this the universe? The surrounding starlight gradually gathered, forming a giant blue face facing him. The eyes of the giant face seemed to be two planets. Even though he has no eyeballs, he can still feel that the other person is looking at him. Who is it? Li Wei thought in confusion. Eternal. Two simple words appeared in Levi's mind. There is no sound, but your own thoughts and the other person's thoughts can be transmitted to each other. You are the second human from Earth who has met me. Has anyone else seen an existence like yours? I can't see your past and future clearly. Either you come from a higher latitude, or you will be a being comparable to me in the future. Perhaps only that great person knows about the latitude far beyond the almighty universe. Even the eternal great God couldn't help but wonder at this moment. Eternity, one of Marvel's 4 major abstractions, is an abstract God born at the moment of the Big Bang. It represents the concrete manifestation of time in the entire almighty universe. It is also the collective consciousness of all life in the universe and the physical incarnation of the almighty universe. Or is it an existence that rivals me? Eternally stared at Levi. But Levi suddenly felt an inexplicable force, and the lost drive suddenly appeared and put it on his waist. The eternal memory passed in front of Levi like a meteor, inserting the lost drive into Levi's sight. The inexplicable power originates from the memories of other worlds and Earths, relying on the power of the mind. Finally, he said, what a wonderful product. We will meet again. In the eyes of the eternal God, those 2 planets burst out with dazzling light. The light stung Levi's eyes. When he opened his eyes again, he saw a white ceiling. Hey, you kid is awake? You've slept for more than 10 hours. Fighting that big green monster is such a waste of energy. I thought you kid was tired from spending the night with more than 20 young models. Tony's frivolous voice came, and Levi sat up and saw the energetic Tony and Pepper beside him. Pepper patted Tony's shoulder and breathed a sigh of relief. You can rest, Tony. This kid's heart rate is only in the 20s, it's so scary. Tony made an exaggerated expression. If Pepper hadn't seen Tony staring at the heart rate monitor with a gloomy expression, she would have thought that Tony didn't care at all. It turns out that this man also cares about his family. Playboy may also have a side that is unknown to everyone. Boy, what happened to keep your heart rate at a ridiculously low level? Tony put away his expression and asked with concern. I used the strongest power so far. That power was so terrifying that it even affected my mind. It made me feel like I was going to become a dictator, the next head of state, and wanted to conquer the world. Levi said slowly. That feeling. Tony looked at the lost drive on the bedside table, showing a sense of powerlessness. His intelligence was completely unable to decipher the secrets above, which made Tony feel powerless. Listen, Levi, I don't object to you using it, but you must know who you are. You can become a president, a scientific researcher, a cynical young man, and definitely a hero who saves the world, but you must never let become a villain who destroys innocent families and takes the lives of others. Tony held Levi's shoulders with both hands. He hoped that the child he watched grow up would live the life he deserved and not be a criminal. Don't worry, Tony, nothing can change my will. That's good. How do you feel now? I've recovered, and I feel like I can fight the Hulk again. Levi gave an answer that made Pepper and Tony smile. Tony said, I already know everything about Bruce Banner. His recovery speed is faster than ordinary people. For the time being, let him stay in the Stark building. Many people will look for him outside. By the way, I remember I attacked the military helicopter. Tony said indifferently, it doesn't matter. I have already sent a lawyer's letter to General Ross and the Air Force Command. I believe they will give a reply soon. The capitalists are still unreasonable, and the military dares to issue a lawyer's letter. Definitely, anyone but Tony Stark would have been pinned to the ground and rubbed by the military. This means you have to be powerful when you come out to hang out. It was now 3 o'clock in the afternoon and Levi left the room. He is still in the Stark building, which has now resumed work. Levi, who didn't want to continue here, took the elevator and went downstairs. Levi looked at his phone. There were more than a dozen text messages on it. The call history showed that a few were missed, but the last call was connected. Tony might have answered it on his behalf. Levi played back a phone call, and soon the other end of the phone was connected. Nerissa asked in a low voice, "Levi, how are you?" "Nothing happened, I was just too tired and took a nap." "That's good." Nerissa breathed a sigh of relief, and then said angrily, "Your cousin teased me a lot, and even asked me to go to Stark Building to take care of you, saying that you were seriously injured. If it weren't for pay," Miss Poe explained, "I almost passed." "That's the kind of guy he is, he likes to joke around with people." "Well, I don't blame him either." Just then the elevator door opened, and a one-eyed dragon wearing an eye patch walked in. "You should let your good girl take classes seriously. She doesn't have your family status." As soon as the black braised egg came in, Li Wei's face turned black. "Let's talk about it later. I have a black braised egg here. Speaking of which, hehe, I'm dead good." Levi hung up the phone, then took out his ears, pretending to look here and there, and finally asked in confusion, "Why is there a braised egg talking?" FK. Say something quickly." Levi was impatient. "Do me a favor." "Why?" The military's S.H.I.E.L.D. also contributed. "I do not believe. I don't have to lie to you. Tell me the story, that's it." Before Nick Fury could finish speaking, Levi urged, "Say something quickly." Chapter 29. Levi got on his motorcycle and headed back to the beach house. The motorcycle has been modified with HA.A.R.V.I.S subsystem, equipped with intelligent navigation and autonomous driving. The motorcycle can return to the Stark Building or beach house on its own. Levi had already lost 2 motorcycles at the scene of the battle. Although they could be recovered, they were destroyed by Tony. In order to avoid some trouble, Tony had to let the motorcycles go home on their own. After all, its owner is an irresponsible Kamen Rider, and a mature motorcycle can only go home on its own. Levi, who returned to HYDRA, entered the laboratory and placed the lost drive on the experimental table. There is an extra silver white button on the drive, which is about 1/3 the size of a Coke bottle cap. Could it be that the Eternal God did something? Pressing the button, a holographic projection popped up. There is a countdown in the upper part of the projection. Levi didn't know what this meant. The lower part has 3 heads. The first one is Delta's avatar, the second icon is Joker, and the third one is naturally eternal. Levi clicked on Delta's profile picture. The lost drive was transformed into a contrasting flow of silver-white liquid, and finally turned into a Delta belt. This is nothing less than a surprise for Levi, he can transform into the previous night. A small gift from the Eternal God? Levi calmed down, put away the Delta belt, and then started the unfinished research project. His goal is to reproduce the Leo cavalry that appeared in Kamen Rider 555. Although the Leo cavalry is not very powerful, if it is mass-produced, it can completely create a team of knights of its own. With your own power, you no longer need to be controlled by others for many things. In this way, Levi continued to take classes during the day, returned to HYDRA in the evening to continue research, and occasionally took time to communicate in depth with Nerissa. Currently, Tony is on vacation in Sri Lanka, and the laboratory is completely under Levi's control. However, the slow progress of the Leo Cavalry project cannot be easily completed. The energy core alone is not easy to solve. The arc reactor cannot replace the energy core of Leo Cavalry. A very simple belt was bubbling in the water in the glass culture bucket. The water in which the belt was soaked was not ordinary water. The water was filled with substances extracted from the ashes of Enoch of Orpheus, which contained highly toxic substances. The belt is made of Luna metal with a small amount of adamantium. Adamantium is a piece that Tony spent a lot of effort to obtain. This belt is very simple to style. Levi had analyzed some of the photon blood, and it contained the power of Orpheus. Maybe he really needed to capture an Orpheus for experimentation. Like Tony, the replica belt is completely stuck on the production of photon channels and photon blood. The photon flow channel requires mature nanotechnology, but nanotechnology is not mature in this era. Definitely, if you have the opportunity, you can go to Wakanda and maybe you can get mature nanotechnology. After a month and a half of living between 2 o'clock and 1 line, Nick Fury finally came to see Levi. Nick Fury said straight to the point, "We are ready. The target is the HYDRA base in Russia. The people traveling with you this time are all HYDRA agents, so what you do next is entirely up to you. You did me a small favor, but you asked me to fly to Russia to carry out the mission of killing my teammates and destroying the HYDRA base. I'm at a loss. Levi obviously wanted benefits. Nick Fury had known what Levi would fart, and sneered, I have prepared a big gift for you. Didn't you ask Phil Coulson about Enoch of Enoch not long ago? In fact, we have already captured one. Levi stared closely at Nick Fury. Did he know something about his research? This Orpheus can be given to you, but... Nick Fury made it clear that it is not that easy to get. The Orpheus is in a secret laboratory of SHIELD. It's just from there. The person in charge is also HYDRA. Do you think I'm a fool? Are you going to kill me with a borrowed knife? Levi snorted coldly, waved his hand and issued an eviction order. Since you are so insincere, there is no need to talk anymore. Seeing that Levi didn't want to talk to him at all, Nick Fury finally used his trump card. Tony's armor is low on energy. I know there is something to solve the energy problem. Not enough, I also need some things from S.H.I.E.L.D's collection. That is property belonging to SHIELD. You can't find the secret of some things, so it doesn't matter. Why not give them to those in need? Nick Fury shook his head and said, you are wrong. S.H.I.E.L.D warehouse doesn't have anything that doesn't matter, but it allows you to choose. One more thing, I need your research data and blood samples on Orpheus Enoch. You are indeed studying something. Nick Fury said firmly, there must be something wrong with the codenamed Delta device. Levi was stunned for a moment, then nodded pretendingly, that's right, so I have been using other models recently. But there's one model where you can't control its limits. There's no need to trick me into intel, we're not enemies. Forget it, just do whatever you want. That's it. I'll have Phil Coulson pick you up in 3 days. After Nick Fury left, Levi breathed a sigh of relief. He liked smart guys like this. The one-eyed braised egg must have thought he had figured it out. The deal was concluded, and Levi did not go to the laboratory again this time. Now that he was stuck in a bottleneck, he did not need to conduct any more experiments. On the weekend, I spent the night with Narisa at a Sea View hotel. Levi didn't know how long this kind of day would last. Head to the airport in Phil Coulson's classic car. How is Rumlow? Levi was looking for a topic. Unfortunately, he died in the last operation to capture Enoch. Phil Coulson did not shy away from it. After all, he was Nick Fury's confidant and was involved in many things. Not to mention that at this moment when no one is available, Nick Fury is eager to break Phil Coulson into 3 parts. Nick Fury also asked Phil Coulson to trust Levi as much as possible. After all, there must be someone who has a good relationship with Levi, otherwise it will really be a black eye. Levi doesn't have any bad feelings towards Phil Coulson, but he is very optimistic about the balding agent. That's such a shame, why not try to win him over? Phil Coulson also lamented, I can't believe it easily, after all, he has been lurking for a long time. Chatting all the way until arriving at S.H.I.E.L.D airport. Phil Coulson said good luck to Levi, gave Levi a piece of equipment, and then left in a hurry. Levi was sitting in a S.H.I.E.L.D fighter plane, with more than a dozen S.H.I.E.L.D special team members sitting next to him. This time, none of the members of the special team are clean, they are all selected HYDRA members. Only Nick Fury can think of letting HYDRA attack HYDRA's base. And he is just a bait that HYDRA cannot refuse, a bait that will bite his mouth if he wants to eat it. Levi didn't know when they would start. Anyway, he was wearing a Delta belt and transformed very quickly. To be on the safe side, Levi even wore a gas mask and body armor. S.H.I.E.L.D's fighter planes were very fast and arrived at their destination in just a few hours. Chapter 30. The plane landed in eastern Siberia, at the northwest end of the Altai Mountains. According to Phil Coulson's information, Winter Soldier was transformed here. The captain of the Special Forces team led a group of team members who seemed to be in a tight formation, but in fact, Levi was sandwiched in the middle. Levi was not a fool. He said directly, I am not a member of the Special Forces. I don't need to obey orders. I will act alone. Levi said he was acting alone, but in fact he was following the back of the team. The captain of the Special Forces team couldn't help it, at least he didn't dare to do anything outside. He really didn't have the qualifications to order Levi. When he came out, he asked Nick Fury, who just told him to do it. Mind your own business and don't worry about Li Wei. The tasks of both parties are different. In this way, Li Wei followed the team and walked towards the valley step by step. Hidden in the rocks, there is a gate made of a huge stone, which is invisible to the instrument. A member of the Special Forces team stood under a rock and connected a portable computer to a combination lock hidden in the cracks of the rocks. The code was quickly deciphered, and the speed was so fast that Levi was stunned. If it was really that easy, Tony would think it would take so long to crack a chip, even this group of people wouldn't be able to act. The mountain stone gate made a deafening sound of movement, and soon a dark hole appeared in front of him. The captain of the Special Operations team glanced vaguely at Levi at the rear, then made a sign to his team members to find the way, and the two members of the Special Operations team walked in cautiously. Soon 2 screams were heard. Upon seeing this, the team leader took everyone over to check. Levi didn't know what kind of show they were performing, so he simply followed them to have a look. Just after Levi entered, the door slowly closed. Looking at the closed door, Levi suddenly felt like he was being beaten by a dog. Ahead, the Special Operations team found the dead members. The 2 people were lying on the ground, with blood flowing all over the ground. There is no heartbeat. Some kind of trap should be triggered. The captain of the Special Forces team said seriously. Damn it, HYDRA, one of the team members shouted angrily. For a moment after hearing these words, Levi thought this guy was a hero of justice. Levi has always suspected that Nick Fury is plotting against him. For example, this special force is not HYDRA but to eradicate dissidents. But Phil Coulson has determined that this team is a HYDRA spy, and there is no need for Phil Coulson to lie to himself. Entering a space along a long and narrow passage, it looks like an arsenal with patios, living pools, conveyor belts, and a variety of messy instruments. Levi also brought a hidden camera to record this place. The most important thing was to leave evidence. Enter through the small door at the end of the metal corridor. Inside is a larger space. The temperature here is relatively low, probably below 0. There are several iron cans around, and through the glass you can see frozen people inside. Are these all winter soldiers? Levi wiped the glass of the tin can and looked through the glass. He saw a frozen man inside, also with metal arms. It's just that this man's figure looks very different from Bucky's. He's on the thin side, and his metal arms are too thick and uncoordinated. Hiss! Hiss! Suddenly the sound of electric current came from the surroundings, and soon a synthesis portrait was projected on the innermost wall. The figure composed of 0 and 1 looked like a skeleton. Welcome to your presence. I have already guessed that you will come here, so I have specially prepared a gift. Please enjoy it. The voice of the synthesis portrait did not contain any emotion, and it sounded quite strange. The members of the Special Forces team looked around, and soon the surrounding iron cans started to activate, and the originally frozen interior quickly turned red, as if they were heating. That's not good. Seeing this, Levi also put his hand on Delta's phone, ready to transform at any time. The surrounding special team members had already focused their attention on Levi. At the same time, Coordinates Base Number 5, the Kamen Rider has arrived. Do you want to activate the annihilation mode? Also in a base in Siberia, the same synthesis figure composed of 0s and 1s made a voice. The old gentleman in a white suit said slowly, "Ji now, pour the picture here." Okay. Soon, a picture of Levi's transformed Delta appeared on the huge monitor. The old gentleman stared at the screen with resentment and said a few words from between his teeth, "Kamen Rider." The strong man also stared at the monitor and said at the same time, "This knight should be codenamed Delta, coming from the world of Enoch of Orpheus." The old gentleman nodded and responded, "Yes, but according to the intelligence, the Delta belt should have been split into 2 other belts. How could it appear again? The other 2 knights can turn into Fengdu, I'm afraid they have some secrets. Dodolan, should we annihilate the Kamen Riders now? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'm afraid we can't do it. Dr. Death God. Don't forget the knight in Fengdu. The opponent's strength is difficult to win with just AF Enoch. We still need more help. Then let the leader kill the Kamen Rider himself after the leader is resurrected." Dr. Death God agreed with Dodolan's idea. "Ji now, abandon those 4 failed experimental subjects." "Clear." Dr. Death God looked at Dodolan, his nominal superior. After re-editing Zola into a brain, although the computing has been greatly improved, it has lost the self-evolution ability it had before. Dodelong snorted coldly, Dashika only needs an honest and obedient Hineo, and does not need him to have self-awareness. Dr. Death God's eyes returned to the monitor screen, and he said coldly, the glory of Overhaul card will soon be restored. Chapter 31. Suppress the Kamen Riders, followed the instructions of Dr. Death God. Levi, who was far away in the so-called base number 5, heard the constant sounds of bang, 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 one after another. The door of the iron kin was kicked open, and the dent in the iron door was deeply visible. The winter soldiers with metal arms came out of their tin cans one after another. Levi dropped his coat, picked up the Delta phone and gave the transformation command. As the complete sound effect came, the silver-blue photon flow channel spread rapidly, and with a dazzling light flashing across the dim room, the transformation was completed. The winter soldiers all looked at where Levi was, gearing up to attack. None of them paid attention to the Special Forces team over there. Levi pulled out his blaster and activated the shooting mode. He aimed at the Special Forces over there and fired a burst. In an instant, several Special Forces fell to the ground and died suddenly. The Special Forces team was dumbfounded. They had never seen anyone attack their own people first in a battle. At least for now we are still one of our own. Seeing that Levi was attacking indiscriminately, the captain of the special team stopped pretending and shouted, Hydra hail! The surrounding special team members seemed to be inspired, and they all echoed, Hydra hail! When the captain of the Special Forces team saw that all his team members were Hydra, alarm bells rang in his heart. This is definitely not normal. This special force was formed temporarily, and the captain did not know the details of all the members. Nick Fury also did this on purpose. At this time, Levi had already pointed at a Hydra at close range and directly pulled the trigger. Without further ado, let's go. Boom! One Hydra died suddenly. Levi pushed the body away and fired several shots at the other Hydra. Other Hydras looked for bunkers to avoid the shooting attacks. Fire snakes poured out, and the bullets hit Levi's body and spattered sparks. At this time, the winter soldiers were also pressing towards Levi. Seeing this situation, they could only deal with these brainwashed warriors first. Inserting the memory lens into the blaster, Levi fired a triangular cone mask at the thin man he had seen before. The thin winter soldier raised his metal arm to block, but the locking force of the light mask prevented him from moving. Fallen Angel's hammer. Levi entered the light shield, and as the light shield rotated rapidly, half of the thin winter soldier's body was penetrated in an instant. The winter soldiers did not care at all about the death of their comrades and continued to attack. A punch came from behind, and Levi turned around and kicked the opponent in the stomach, forcing him back. Bang! He punched out with all his strength and instantly knocked down another winter soldier who was thrusting a dagger straight at him. After grabbing the dagger, Levi inserted it into the neck of a winter soldier with his backhand, then pulled out the dagger and swung it far away. A Special Forces member was pierced on the spot. Levi's movements were done in one go, as if he had already calculated every attack. He kicked the approaching figure, quickly raised his blaster with his other hand and shot out the last luminous projectile. Phew! A winter soldier's head was half broken like a smashed watermelon. Red and white things are splashing around. There was a heavy BG sound inside the tin can. Da-da-da! The sound of machine gun fire continued, and bullets hit Levi, causing his footsteps to slowly slow down. At this time, the last female winter soldier stepped forward and stabbed Levi's neck with a dagger. In her opinion, the armor around Levi's neck was weaker. Levi held the dagger with his blaster, then knocked it down with a swinging punch. He stepped out quickly, raised his legs high and came down, stomping directly on the winter soldier's chest. Puff! The female winter soldier spat out large mouthfuls of blood, her neck tilted as if she had lost her breath. Levi's large-scale attacks and killings not only frightened the green projected avatars who had been observing, but also frightened the living Hydra spies. The captain of the Special Forces team gritted his teeth and knew that he could no longer sit here and wait for death, so he shouted, Dr. Zola, is there any other way? It doesn't match the data. The winter soldier cannot be solved, and we are asking whether to activate the emergency plan. Dr. Zola's cold words, which seemed to come from a 50-cent microphone, made the captain of the special team feel like a life-saving straw. What plan? Start it quickly. Dr. Death God, who was far away in another base, immediately agreed to activate the emergency plan. He also wanted to see the strength of this Kamen Rider. Turning on. Suddenly, there was a strange movement on the ceiling above their heads. The members of the Special Forces team looked up one after another. They saw several mechanical arms carrying some kind of grey reagent suddenly penetrate the ceiling and attack them with claws and teeth. What the hell is this? Zola. Zola said without any emotion, with the Orphenok potion, the user has a 10% chance of transforming into Orphenok. Orphenika's power is dozens of times that of a human being. HYDRA hail. These Special Forces members who were deeply brainwashed by HYDRA responded, HYDRA hail, and then stopped struggling. The reagents carried by the robotic arm were quickly inserted into the arteries of several people and the substances in the reagents were injected into them. A few seconds later, the unknown substance reacted quickly. The members of the Special Forces roared, wailed, and knelt on the ground begging for mercy. Some even burned with blue flames on their bodies, and then Hawaii ashes died completely. The roaring Special Forces captain's body twisted for a while, and finally turned into the grey flying fish AF Enoch. There were originally 4 people, but now only 1 person survives. Pressing the small button on the belt to summon the holographic image, Levi clicked on the Joker avatar, then the transformation was released, and the belt surged like fluid and turned into a lost drive. None of these Winter Soldiers are as strong as Bucky Barnes, and the only enemy now is the newly transformed AF Enoch in front of him. The new student of FI Enoch will not be very strong, and they themselves need an adaptation process. Now is the best time to deal with him. The flying fish Orpheus Enoch has fins on both sides of its head and front wrists, making it look like a scary creature from a horror movie. Levi also didn't expect that HYDRA could create a FI Enoch on its own. Could it be that a FI Enoch, a group of unstable monsters, was absorbed by HYDRA? HYDRA has discovered the secret of human beings turning into Ophir Enoch bodies? Levi looked at Dr. Zola. This Dr. HYDRA who uploaded his consciousness to the computer might actually be able to research something. Enoch, the flying fish, had an extra crossbow in his hand, and the crossbow arrows looked like harpoons. I saw flying fish Aofe pointing the hand crossbow at Levi, and then pulled the trigger. Levi inserted the ace memory into the lost drive. As the Joker sound effect came, the black fragments gathered together, and the harpoon hit the black fragments, causing sparks to explode. But Levi was not affected at all and still transformed into Kamen Rider Ace. Flying fish AF Enoch punched Levi on the head. But before it hit Levi's head, he was caught by his palm. Levi leaned forward at the same time, bumped his shoulder into the opponent, and knocked him back. With the distance widened, Levi jumped up high and kicked the flying fish AF Enoch completely to the ground. Flying fish Aofe rushed towards Levi like crazy, roaring inexplicably. Why are you crazy? Levi's punches hit the flying fish Aofe like raindrops one after another, and with the strength of the last blow, he punched upwards and knocked him away. Insert the ace memory into the slap slot, and as the slap falls, Joker. Maximum drive. Levi's fist was filled with purple-black energy, and he punched the flying fish Aofe. Flying fish AF tried his best to use the weapon in his hand to separate his fist, but the powerful force knocked him away, and his body hit the iron can that Winter Soldier came out of. Fortunately, Fiu Afi blocked the knight's punch with his crossbow, otherwise this punch would have been enough to kill him. Chapter 32. Toward the flying fish Orpheus Enoch. Fiu climbed up from the ground with difficulty and looked at the black warrior walking towards him in horror. He wanted to escape, but how could he escape with the surrounding area sealed? I saw flying fish AF Enoch kneeling down with a pop. Kneeling on the ground, he said tremblingly, "Please let me go. You are HYDRA, how can you let it go?" Levi walked up to him, lightly slapped him on the face, and said rather playfully, "Zola is still watching, how dare you betray her?" Enoch, the flying fish of Orpheus, restored normal human emotions and did not dare to make the same mistake again. His power retracted and he returned to his human form. The captain of the Special Forces team pleaded, "When I graduated from SHIELD Academy, someone asked me to join HYDRA with them. It's just that the benefits are better, and I don't really want to join." Levi took off his tactical helmet, revealing his true face. He was just a white man who looked to be under 30 years old. He had short hair, an unkempt beard, and his eyes were full of fear. Seeing that Levi was still silent, the captain of the special team quickly said, "I know a lot of information, and I can tell you everything. Please, please spare my life." Then he hugged Levi's thigh and begged, looking like he was in danger of life or death. The look of eagerness for survival in front of him really made Levi feel funny. "That's great." The captain of the special operations team was overjoyed. When he looked up, he saw that Levi had not stopped at all. Instead, he pulled out the grenade he took out from nowhere and threw it at him. He only heard a bang. Ming, there was a sudden explosion sound all around, and even the walls collapsed. Everything around him ceased to exist and turned into ruins. Turning around stiffly, the captain of the Special Forces team looked back in disbelief at the way the wall was blown open, revealing the path. Come with me. After Levi finished speaking, he walked towards the broken wall without looking back. The captain of the Special Forces team quickly followed Levi, and the two returned the same way they came, leaving the HYDRA base that hollowed out the mountain. Standing outside this base, Levi pressed the detonation button, and the bomb he dropped earlier detonated at this moment. A violent earthquake occurred in the mountain. Back on the fighter plane, Levi inserted a USB flash drive into the plane's smart device, and J.A.R.V.I.S took over the S.H.I.E.L.D fighter plane. Levi cancelled his transformation, picked up the contact device and sent a message to Nick Fury. Soon Nick Fury called, "Is it solved?" Levi looked at the captain of the special team and said, "One is left. HYDRA already has the technology to transform Enoch." Nick Fury said melancholy, "This news is really terrible. Zola must have analyzed the secret of Enoch of Orpheus. He was the most outstanding scientist of HYDRA at the time." Then he heard his conversation change, "Why do you want to stay?" The next destabilizing factor. Levi raised his eyebrows and already knew what the other party was about to fart. This word is not used well. The unstable factors are those that can hurt people. It sounds like that's the agent of SHIELD. He needs to come back and continue working. Nick Fury wants to compete for the ownership of Flying Fish AF Enoch. In fact, he is already on your death list. From now on he is a member of Stark Industries' security team. Fake. Boy, you violated your credit. It will be difficult for people without credit to find jobs in the future. An agent leader can also be trustworthy. Li Wei raised his eyebrows. He first betrayed S.H.I.E.L.D and then HYDRA, and now he surrenders to you. Do you want someone like this? Nick Fury still refused to give up. I definitely have a way to make him be honest and obedient, but I heard that he joined HYDRA because the benefits of SHIELD are not as good as HYDRA. FK. Do you believe this? It's impossible for most agents to join HYDRA for welfare reasons, right? Your kid's brain was just killed in a battle. It's hard to say, so I'll treat your plane as an advance payment. Remember to send me everything I need later, otherwise I will announce to the world that S.H.I.E.L.D has become Snake and Shield. They are because of their concerns about wages and benefits. He betrayed S.H.I.E.L.D and joined HYDRA out of dissatisfaction. Levi hung up the phone. Although Nick Fury felt that the loss was great, he had one more headache. HYDRA can transform humans into Orpheus Enoch, which is not a good thing. Farkey, we still have too few people. Nick furiously picked up the phone and dialed after a while of hesitation. Soon the other end of the phone was connected and a rough voice came, "Nick? What's the matter?" "Frank? Listen, I need your help now." There was silence on the other end of the phone, and finally he said, "Friend, I'm afraid I can't help you with anything now. I have received the news, and I feel sorry for their loss. S.H.I.E.L.D can help you, and you should help me accordingly. You know, S.H.I.E.L.D is very well informed." There was another moment of silence, and the other end of the phone responded, "I understand, see you at the same place." Returning to New York, Levi asked J.A.R.V.I.S to land the plane at Tony's private airport because he notified Tony in advance. Now S.H.I.E.L.D is not a Quinjet, it is just another model of fighter plane. Levi took Fiyu to the Stark building, and Tony was already waiting in the laboratory. Li Wei didn't care about the other person's name and directly gave him a code name, Fiyu. Seeing Levi coming in with a strange man, Tony was a little hesitant. "Isn't it bad for us to do this? After all, it is a human experiment, what is the difference between this and HYDRA?" Levi hopes that Tony can say the same thing in the future when he finds out that Bucky is the murderer of his parents. What if I don't implant a control chip into him and he goes out to hurt people? It's not like you don't know AF Enoch's strength. If I don't implant him with a control chip, now I can only kill him. Levi looked at him fiercely. "Flying fish." Fiyu was startled and nodded quickly, "I accept it. I accept it. Levi just deliberately scared him, who knew this guy could be so timid. How can he still become the captain? Okay. Tony only asked symbolically. Since the other party accepted it voluntarily, it didn't matter to him. Anyway, since he cracked the mind control chip and improved it, he has never really experimented with it. This is the first experiment. Tony's improved chip only needs to be placed on the spine, but it still requires a surgeon to perform the surgery. And this doctor is still familiar to Levi, Doctor Strange. After all, Tony gave too much. Chapter 33. Strange takes his place. In front of his hands like a pianist, the operation was simple and completed in just 1 hour. His metabolism is very fast. The surgical wounds are healing at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the effect of the anesthetic is gradually weakening. It is estimated that he will wake up in 10 minutes. Strange has never seen such a person before. As you know about the recent major events, he is similar to a military experimental subject. Tony explained. If it had been anyone else, Tony wouldn't have explained. I don't understand what you are doing. There are 2 surgeries left in the hospital, so I'll leave now. Strange changed his clothes and left immediately after the surgery. After Strange left, Tony was still a little worried and asked, "Is this guy really going to stay?" Levi said, "One of the keys to replicating the Delta Belts is to study the secrets inside them. Blood samples and bone samples have just been collected." Tony is indeed very interested in Orphanok, but he is very resistant to human experiments, so he has never thought about Orphanok. Now that there are finally samples for research, Tony has pressed his patience. Can't hold back that curious heart. Tony left the medical room, and Levi sat on a stool and waited for more than 10 minutes. Fei woke up with a start and immediately jumped out of bed. Seeing Levi looking at him with a smile, Fei quickly stood up at attention. Levi crossed his legs and said leisurely, "Now you are an employee of Stark Industries. If there is any betrayal, the chip on your spine is enough to kill you." Fei was sweating profusely, and he could feel a foreign body feeling on his spine. "Yes. I don't know what I should call you." "Boss?" "Boss." Fei lowered his head and glanced at Levi secretly. "Just boss." Now that his fate is in the hands of others, Fei only hopes that his future fate will be better than that in SHIELD. Fei has seen a Enoch, the dolphin that was previously captured by SHIELD. It is said that it was particularly miserable in the laboratory. The person went in the morning, and the laboratory was done at noon. The dolphin Enoch came out lying down. Although he didn't die, he was tortured by various instruments before he came out. Fei stayed in the Stark building to keep Bucky company. They both had special backgrounds, so I believe they would have a lot to talk about. After several days of spreading, word of Hydra's revival finally spread in SHIELD, even destroying a Special Forces team. Nick Fury pretends to hold a funeral for the members of the Special Forces team, while appeasing the emotions of others. Because the operation is secretive, no one except Nick Fury's confidants knows that Kamen Rider is also involved. The Special Forces team that was wiped out left nothing behind, and the traces had been cleaned up by Phil Coulson's leadership. For a moment, everyone in S.H.I.E.L.D. was panicked, and Pierce also found Nick Fury specifically, intentionally or unintentionally making excuses to find out if Nick Fury knew anything. Nick Fury, who doesn't want to believe anyone now, naturally won't reveal too much, even if this person is his old leader. Seeing that Alexander Pierce couldn't get anything out of the question, he made some superficial efforts and told Nick Fury that he would hold back the Security Council and let Nick Fury show off his skills. Nick Fury was almost fooled by Pierce's performance, and thanks to his silence, he was spared a future attack. As the main person in charge of the Winter Soldier project, Alexander Pierce very much hopes to find Bucky Barnes, the most perfect Winter Soldier. What Siberia lost this time were some unimportant Winter Soldiers, just defective products, and he didn't feel bad. It's just that Nick Fury's actions were too subtle, and it was impossible to guess what he was thinking. Pierce is also torn. On the one hand, Nick Fury is really talented, and he doesn't want to kill Nick Fury before the Insight project is launched. But on the other hand, he is afraid of what Nick Fury will discover. A few days later, Levi and Tony injected a red liquid into the belt made by Levi in the laboratory of Stark building. There are glass tubes on both sides of the driver in the center of the belt. When filled with sufficient red liquid, it represents the beginning of this experiment. Fei, come and try. Levi handed the belt to Fei, who was watching eagerly. Fei took the belt and put it on his body and then asked, "How to use this?" "You can just press down the device that stands up on the driver." Fei did as he was told, and the glass tube around the driver burst into red light, but soon the light began to flicker and become unstable, followed by a burst of strong electric current flashing out. Ah! The belt exploded instantly and the flying fish flew out. Fei was so shocked by this belt that his hair stood on end and his shirt was even in tatters. Tony recorded the experimental data and said at the same time, "It's not a failure, but the energy flow provided is not as good as photon blood. The high-density fluid energy and raw materials require a large amount of Orphenicus blood to be diluted. The key point now is how to make the photon flow channel. The material is too difficult to choose." Tony sighed and said helplessly, "It needs strong ductility and must be combined with nanotechnology. I'm afraid it won't be possible to produce it in a short time." "Then let's slowly hone in on the technology. We still have a lot of time." "What is Dr. Banner doing now?" "He's studying how to deal with the monster inside him and practicing how to control his emotions. It turns out that we are doing such a meaningful thing. Maybe we can leave the belt matter to Dr. Banner." "What a great idea. Dr. Banner is really talented. It's not easy to get you to recognize talented scientists. I'm not a dictator. I admit that there are many geniuses in this world, but those who surpass me are definitely dead." Tony laughed after saying this. Levi resumed his studies, which was also Tony's request. In his words, "School time is a rare time, and all good things happen at this time." Tony continued to focus on making his own steel battlesuit. Nick Fury told Tony about Howard Stark's relics, but Tony didn't discover the mystery and didn't even look at those relics. Nerissa and Levi were inseparable at school as always exuding the stench of love. Soon, it's Christmas time. During his vacation, Levi made an appointment with Irene to attend a school party. The party was attended by people from many grades. Fortunately, the school auditorium was spacious enough and not crowded. In the middle of the dance floor, beautiful figures were swaying. Boys invited the girls they liked to dance, and Levi was among them. At this moment, he finally felt like he was among his peers. The party lasted until 11 o'clock in the evening, and Levi drove Nerissa to the booked hotel. The two people in the car talked about interesting things that happened at the party. Chapter 34. Time came to 2009. On the first day of the new year, Tony rushed to Levi's room and woke him up with a pair of dark circles under his eyes. "Aliens invaded the Earth?" Levi asked, rubbing his eyes. "It's not scary for aliens to invade the Earth. What's scary is that I found a new element. This is the greatest discovery of this century." Tony is like a drug addict who has taken too many drugs, with a haggard face and a smile on his face, looking a little crazy. "Have you researched Uncle Howard's relics?" Levi sat up from the bed. Tony was startled. "Dad's relics? What are you studying?" Levi was taken aback by what he said, and then he pretended to be confused and said, "Didn't Nick Fury tell you? The new energy is hidden in those relics. No nonsense and just blame the black braised eggs. No matter what, everything is the braised eggs' fault. So, what new element did you discover?" "I discovered a new element in the body of Orpheus. When they change from human bodies to Orpheus, their bodies will produce a hormone. This hormone will cause various organs in the body to strengthen. This hormone can also promote the integration of metal. Luna metal is finally perfect. It will be adamantium's biggest competitor." Seeing Tony's unspeakably excited expression, Levi couldn't help but ask, "Is it possible that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been studied from the captured Orphenok?" Tony was stunned, and his excitement suddenly sank. He turned on Levi's computer, and then activated his permissions to hack into S.H.I.E.L.D.'s system, allowing J.A.R.V.I.S to read the information related to Orphenok. Soon, Tony's expression became excited again. "I told you, how could those people compare to me? Then first-time discoverer, can you let me go and wash up? Sister Pepper has been standing there for a long time." Levi pointed to the door. Tony quickly calmed down his expression, turned around and said seriously, "You know, scientists are easily excited by new discoveries, and so is Einstein. I don't care what Einstein is like. What I care about is why you called me on the last day of 2008 and then left me alone in the room waiting for the new year." Pepper's eyes were extremely resentful. Tony's eyes were wandering. Levi shook his head and sighed, and left silently under Pepper's approving gaze. I didn't expect there to be such people seeking death. Maybe Tony had a sudden inspiration. This kind of inspiration is fleeting, and if you don't catch it, you may miss this discovery. Oh, my dear, you are such a lucky angel. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be the greatest scientist of this century. Tony coaxed Pepper effortlessly. After hearing such disgusting words, Levi walked downstairs expressionlessly. A few days later, a perfect Luna metal sample was presented in front of Levi. Tony filled the steel battle suit's gloves with 50% of the power consumption and fired the laser, which only left a shallow mark on the piece of Luna metal, which was the same as Delta's defensive effect. However, it is still somewhat difficult to use nanotechnology on Luna metal, which requires technological innovation. But the new year always has a good start, and the arrival of Luna metal is a good start. At the end of the winter vacation, Levi returned to campus. Nerissa also came as scheduled. There were not many classes this semester, and Levi also had more free time. Walking in the school where dead branches spread and light snow fell, Nerissa expressed her recent inner hesitation. Do you think I should change my major? I feel like I don't have much ability in physics. Levi rolled his eyes. That's not necessary, is it? Then the conversation changed. Your grades are good, there is no need to change your major rashly. Nerissa nodded, agreeing with Levi's statement. In the school cafeteria, Levi, who had just finished his meal, sat down, and before he put the food in his mouth, he heard the ringtone of his cell phone. Li Wei saw that it was an unfamiliar number and answered the call in confusion. Hello. Phil Coulson's anxious tone came. I am Phil Coulson, Levi, I need your help. Where are you? I'm in Brooklyn, and I found a lair of Enoch and the vampires here. It's a bit far. There's enough time. The location has been sent to your phone. Jianghu is here to help, right? If I hadn't seen you as a nice person, I would have cursed you. Li Wei hung up the phone. Nerissa seemed to have taken it for granted, jokingly saying, You have a job again? My big hero. Levi smiled awkwardly and said, This guy is a nice guy, please help him. Go quickly. Levi packed up his things and left quickly. Looking at Levi's back, Nerissa looked calm, scooping spoonfuls of mashed potatoes, her manners elegant, without any trace of her girlish look. Levi got on his motorcycle and drove towards Brooklyn, and soon the location of Phil Coulson was uploaded on his phone. According to the location sent by Phil Coulson, Levi arrived soon. It is located in a remote place, surrounded by small alleys. It is extremely quiet, and there is not even a bird. Phil Coulson and Hawkeye seemed to have been waiting here for a long time. Hawkeye looked indifferent, and Phil Coulson was relieved to see Levi's arrival. Levi took off his helmet and said with an inexplicable expression, Vampires and AF Enoch have formed a gang. Before Phil Coulson could speak, Hawkeye said, It's even more serious than that. This group of guys has developed many members, including a few of Orpheus Enoch alone and even a mixture of vampires and Orpheus Enoch. Levi was surprised. Vampires and AF Enoch can be mixed. It has only been a year, but it feels like the whole world has become strange. Phil Coulson took out his tablet and pointed at the photo above and said, A new type of monster, which has the advantages of Enoch and inherits the shortcomings of vampires. The body is dark grey, like a bat. Levi stared at the black humanoid bat inside the tablet and said, It's understandable, it's a mixed race after all. Seeing the two people looking at him, Levi coughed and forgot that he was also a mixed race, so he continued to ask, In other words, ordinary my weapons are useless and I need silver bullets. My silver arrows cannot break through the defense. Hawkeye shook his head. It depends on the situation. The skin of this black bat monster inherits the strength of Enoch, but it also inherits the disadvantages of vampires such as being afraid of the Sunday. Levi also has a headache. A phoenix is getting stronger and stronger, and the number there are more and more, and it's too difficult to deal with. Suddenly he felt that S.H.I.E.L.D's insight plan was not bad. It could at least help him find AF Enoch. Levi asked, So, where are they? Hawkeye and Phil Coulson were seen pointing at the nearest building at the same time, which seemed to be an abandoned parking lot. Levi's eyes widened, So we are discussing how to deal with them right under their noses. They can't get out. Hawkeye shrugged. Levi. One of our companions was lured into the other party's trap. The other party seemed to want to do something to him. I hope you. Before Phil Coulson could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Levi, It's too late. The sky gradually darkened. Phil Coulson frowned and said, "The weather forecast is for rain today." Chapter 35. Everyone, please wish yourself well. Levi took the Delta mobile phone and gave the transformation command. As the sound effect of complete came, the photon flow path expanded rapidly, and the transformation was completed with a dazzling light. "It's too glaring." Hawkeye squinted his eyes and complained slightly. "This is to create a sharp contrast with those grey monsters." Levi stared at the black bat monster walking out of the corridor in front. The vampire Jafei Enoch really surprised Levi a little. He was wearing black armor, with obvious characteristics of a bat head and a pig-like nose. He didn't look like a vampire bat, but more like a pig-nosed bat from Thailand. All in all, he doesn't look very smart. The sky is getting darker and heavier, and the gloom is almost dripping with water. Everything is such a coincidence. The three bat monsters rushed over with their claws and teeth. Phil Coulson and Hawkeye quickly found a bunker and started shooting. However, their two weapons were really not a threat to the bat monsters. Seeing this, Hawkeye showed off his trick, taking out a special arrow and shooting at the weird bat in the center. Call out snapped. The bat monster was not afraid at all but moved very quickly with his hands. Holding the arrow in his hand, Hawkeye smiled when he saw this, and there was a rushing sound on the arrow. The bat weirdo realized that something was wrong, and then the arrow exploded. Boom! The bat monsters on both sides escaped in time and were not seriously injured, but the bat monster in the center was injured by the explosion flames. His originally white and blue eyes turned blood red from the flames and thick smoke. The irritated bat monster waved his arms, and with the help of the thin wings behind his elbows, he was able to fly for a short distance, and rushed towards Hawkeye at extremely fast speeds. However, at this moment, a light bullet flew towards me. The strange bat was hit by this luminous bomb, and his body retreated continuously, but then several more luminous bombs flew in, all of which hit the weirdo. The bat monster fell to the ground with serious injuries, white smoke emitted from his body, and an unknown howl came from his mouth, but there was no trace of pain. The bat monster is not dead, and his strong defense can be seen. Seeing that the other party had temporarily lost resistance, Levi turned his attention to the other two. The memory chip was inserted into the blaster, and a light bullet was fired at a monster. The moment the light bullet hit, it expanded into a triangular cone. Levi sprinted quickly, then jumped up and kicked into the triangle. As the triangular cone rotated, the monster's body was pierced, and Levi appeared crouching behind it. As the flames burst out from his body, the bat monster died. On the other hand, Phil Coulson stepped on the trash can and climbed up to the second floor. A bat monster just jumped and landed in front of Phil Coulson, blocking him. Phil Coulson suddenly felt like he was dead. "Get down!" Hawkeye shouted, and Phil Coulson quickly got down. At this time, an arrow was shot and hit the bat monster in front of Phil Coulson. Then the arrow released a powerful electric current, but this could only last a few seconds. If a normal human removed this electric current, his body would lose strength instantly. The arrows are not strong enough to deal with the BDA of Enoch. Levi took the opportunity to fly up and punch the bat monster in front of Phil Coulson. Then he landed, grabbed Phil Coulson with one arm and threw him from the second floor. Then he took a step forward and kicked the bat monster in the stomach. "Go up!" This bat weirdo reacted quickly, grabbed Levi's ankle and kicked it hard. Levi couldn't help but sneer, turned in the air, landed safely, then rushed forward, grabbed the bat monster's head, pressed it against the wall, pushed his head to rub against the wall, and then threw him down the stairs. However, at this moment, a black shadow rushed towards him, throwing Levi out, and he fell solidly from the second floor to the ground on the first floor. It was the bat monster who was seriously injured by the blaster in the first place. Levi only felt his blood surge, and his body was churning. Pressing the button on the belt, Levi quickly selected Joker as the holographic image popped up, the belt changed, Delta's transformation was cancelled, and then Levi transformed again. The strange bat that sneaked up on the stairs stood in front of Levi, and behind him was the one that Levi pressed against the wall and rubbed against it. 1 against 2, the pressure rises instantly. The fist wind was coming. Levi dodged sideways, and another attack on the lower body came at the same time. Levi's leg was attacked, and he staggered and almost fell. Before he could recover, another punch hit Levi's chest, and sparks flew out. Levi stepped back continuously, and after stabilizing his body, he hit the charging bat monster with an elbow, forcing him back. Hawkeye, who was already at a safe distance, fired explosive arrows to drive back the two bat monsters. After gaining some distance, Levi was able to take a breather. Shaking his hands and clenching his fists, Levi stepped forward bravely. He rushed towards the two bat monsters. Levi, who has been training in the martial arts gym, is full of confidence, not just one against two. In terms of boxing and kicking skills, he believes that he has made great progress. Bang! Snapped! Boom! Punch to the flesh. The vampire turned of Enoch is indeed powerful, but after all, his physical strength is not unlimited. As time goes by, his physical strength is exhausted, and the disadvantage of the bat monster becomes more and more obvious. Two bat monsters were beaten by Levi, and his forehands were actually hard to beat with two fists. The reinforcements of Hawkeye and Phil Coulson are useless, but they can always cause some trouble for the opponent. Bang! The bat monster flew away with a punch and fell to the ground. After struggling to get up, Levi also made a new move. The ace memory is inserted into the tapping slot on the side of the waist. As Levi taps, the sound effect of Joker Maximum Drive comes and the energy begins to be transmitted. He leaned over and turned his head, purple-black energy wrapped around his fist, and the knight punched out. Bang! The bat monster behind him was punched away, and his body exploded as he flew backwards. Second tap slaps the slot. Joker Maximum Drive. He stood up and kicked, and the purple-black energy wrapped around his feet. The weirdo who just got up fell to the ground again. Boom! With a roar, the strange bat died. Chapter 36. Boom! The heavy rain washed away the ashes on the ground, and the ashes flowed into the sewers along with the rainwater. With the heavy rain, a faint red light could be seen in the abandoned parking building. Levi could clearly see a dark figure on the top floor of the abandoned parking building, staring at this place. A pair of wings suddenly extended from the back of the black shadow, and the black shadow turned sharply and rushed towards Levi. Bang! The figure is getting bigger and bigger, and the other party's appearance is becoming clearer and clearer. It is the former Bat of Enoch, but the other party's current appearance has changed partially. The original grey eyes were red, a pair of demon wings behind his back, and the original revolver turned into two short knives on his waist. Batafi punched Levi in the face, his fists collided, sparks exploded, and Batafi fell to the ground. Immediately afterwards, Levi punched him continuously, at full speed, and the sound of punches hitting the flesh echoed between the buildings, and every punch was filled with sparks. With the last punch, gather your strength and sprint straight. Night punch. Bang! The purple-black energy was offset by a strange blood-colored energy. Raindrops as big as stones fell on him, and Levi's heart became colder and colder. This Bat Orpheus Enoch evolved. This was the first time that Levi had a strong sense of crisis. Maybe it's time to switch to eternity again. Bat Aofe drew out his short sword and forced Levi away with a horizontal slash. Levi jumped back and jumped up. Night kick. Bang! Bat Aofe held the blade in front of him and kicked the blade with huge amounts of force, causing it to retreat repeatedly. It was originally a hand-to-hand fight between tough guys. Whoever uses weapons first is not the man. Kamen Rider, we have no grudge. I will leave New York, and even the United States. Bat Af finally spoke. Levi did not give in, but you will eventually endanger human society. I want to leave and you can't stop me. Let's leave the Kamen Rider fight for another time. After saying that, Bat Af suddenly released a burst of thick fog. The thick fog seemed to blow away with the wind, and Bat Af disappeared with it. This amazing hand-to-hand combat ability surprised Phil Coulson and Hawkeye. The belated support from S.H.I.E.L.D. also put down their weapons and turned to the two leaders. There are no living creatures in the nearby buildings. Levi told Phil Coulson and Hawkeye who came over. Phil Coulson was stunned for a moment, then ordered his men, go and save Daywalker. Daywalker? Blade Warrior. The transformation was cancelled, the armor on his body dissipated into fragments, and Levi hid in Hawkeye's umbrella. Soon the two men pulled the black man, who was seriously injured and had lost excessive blood, out of the parking building. Levi looked at the person standing out and silently took note of the other person's appearance. The black boy raised his heavy eyelids and looked at Levi, and slowly said, Dickon took my bloodline and became like that. He changes the weather, and that ability will make him weak, so you must kill him as soon as possible. Levi shook his head, I still need more detailed information. Phil Coulson shared Dickon's information with Levi, and then asked his men to take the Blade Warriors for treatment. Don't let him make things worse. Levi looked at the document uploaded on his phone and understood something about it. Dickon was only the leader of the New York Vampire Organization before, but later became involved with A.F. Enoch. This information was obtained by S.H.I.E.L.D. after Levi and Tony destroyed the flower factory. Dickon seemed to have acquired some kind of technology from Enoch, and used all the vampires in New York for experiments. The 3 weird bats that Levi killed were the products of this experiment, and it is estimated that only these 3 were successful in the experiment. Dickon now uses the Blade Warrior's bloodline upgrade to gain the ability to change the weather in a certain area, and can also turn into mist to escape, which is not easy to deal with. Phil Coulson drove Levi back to the Stark building in a classic car, and Hawkeye returned to S.H.I.E.L.D. to report the situation. At the moment, a cloud of mist materialized at the back door of a bar. It was Dickon who returned to human form. Seeing Dickon on the monitor, the gentlemanly gangster said to his subordinate, a young man wearing a baseball cap and playing a yo-yo, "Dickon is here, bring him here." The lifespan of Orpheus is very short, only about 20 years according to the calculations of those researchers. But there is a method that can extend their life but also enhance the power of Orpheus. This method comes from the Second World War. Phil Coulson described S.H.I.E.L.D's research on Orpheus to Lee Wigeon. According to Nick Fury's plan, he wants to completely hand over Enoch of Orpheus to Levi, and Phil Coulson mainly cooperates with him to do this. You mean the super serum, the one used by Captain America? Yes, the serum can extend the lifespan of A.F. Enoch, and it will also increase their strength. Have you even done this experiment? Can you control that experimental Orpheus Enoch? That's definitely true. Our agents are the most elite in the world anyway. It's just HYDRA. Levi made a last strike. Phil Coulson smiled bitterly, not necessarily. Many HYDRA spies have been eliminated now, and all of them died accidentally or during missions. But Levi said with ill intentions, the black braised egg method is fine. Have you investigated whether Alexander Pierce's HYDRA? Phil Coulson was stunned for a moment, and then said seriously, I have no right to interfere in this matter. All right. If the director knew that you were nicknamed again, I'm afraid he would have to change your grades again. I get angry when I say this. Levi said disdainfully, that guy is so boring, he actually sent an agent to correct a college student's exam paper. I heard that this is the first time in your life that you are taking a makeup exam. Shameless. Levi, who was sitting in the back seat, straightened up and said loudly, that black braised egg, tell him that he will be paid for calling for backup in the future. I'll get off. The car arrived just downstairs at the Stark building, and Phil Coulson watched Levi leave. Shortly after Levi entered, Phil Coulson saw an unmanned motorcycle turning into the Stark building parking lot in the rearview mirror. It was the same one Levi rode before. When will my old friend be able to drive autonomously like this? Phil Coulson patted the steering wheel, quite envious. Levi just returned to the beach house, and when he was about to rest, the door of the room was pushed open forcefully again. Tony walked in with a brand new arc reactor. Look what this is. The greatest masterpiece of this century. Tony showed off. Weren't you the greatest masterpiece of this century last time? Levi looked at the arc reactor in Tony's hand. Tony stressed, that was the greatest discovery. Discovery. Did you hear that? Pay attention to my words. Li Wei said, with new energy, you can also make the Mark 6 battlesuit. That's definitely it. Tony put away the arc reactor, pointed at several folders on Levi's monitor and said, part of your research project can also be restarted. Chapter 37. Many times, it's not that you want to cause trouble, but that trouble comes to you on its own initiative. Like now. Mr. Tony Stark, the Army Command wants you to sell Kamen Rider technology. A lawyer stood in Tony's office and respectfully placed the documents in his hands on Tony's desk. Tony glanced at the military lawyer, then picked up the document and flipped through it with a straight face. A few minutes later, Tony threw down the folder and said displeasedly, you call this a purchase? I think it's free prostitution, where's the shame? I advise you, a lawyer, not to stay in a stingy place like the military anymore. Come to Stark International, I still need a lawyer here. Thank you Mr. Stark for your kindness. In this case, you must be present at the hearing. The lawyer took out another court summons and slapped it on Tony's desk. Believe me, you will regret this decision. Tony extended his hand to see the guest off. After the lawyer left, Tony looked at the court summons and fell into deep thought. He did not expect that the military's appetite was getting bigger and bigger, and the Mark II could no longer satisfy them. We cannot sit still and wait for death. Tony called Pepper and told her about it. Pepper was a little worried about whether the military would take action against Levi. After all, he was still a child who had not graduated, and he did not understand the dangers of America at all. We must ensure Levi's safety, so Tony, what do you think? What I think? That definitely belongs to us and no one can take it away. Not even the military, I'm telling you. This is America, and the government has no right to expropriate citizens' personal property. Then do we need to hire a lawyer? It is definitely necessary, and it is necessary to find the best lawyer. By the way, the one just now will not have any clients in the future. Pepper had an idea, perhaps we can use your improved arc reactor to supply power to the entire New York. The reactor under the Stark building only supplies power here in Manhattan. It is a bit wasteful. Tony agreed, by the way, it lowers the electricity prices of other companies. This is a lot of income, and it can also take this opportunity to expand some popularity. Pepper, you are in this position better than me. Although you will make enemies, this is also no problem, who wouldn't want to take a bite out of Stark? The largest electricity supplier in New York is Osborne Company, and their size cannot compete with Stark. Pepper suggested, the opening ceremony of the Stark Industry Expo, originally scheduled for 2 weeks later, can also be moved forward. Okay, I will have a perfect opening ceremony then. Tony decided. The two finalized the plan, and within a week, Stark Enterprises broke out a lot of news. The first news was that New York power supply would cut electricity prices by 20%. The second news is that Tony Stark announced Pepper Potts as the new CEO of Stark International. Stark pushed a piece of news about infringement of other people's patents, which was promoted by his news department and magazine company, and then one news article every day. With the help of Stark Company, public opinion arose. Until Friday, Stark's big events continued, and the much-anticipated opening ceremony of the Stark Industry Expo kicked off at a venue in New York. Due to the previous publicity, tens of thousands of people attended this opening party. Many media rushed in, fearing that they would miss something. Tony was wearing a steel battlesuit and landed in the center of the venue from a height of 10,000 meters. The girls who were dancing on the stage wisely moved out of the way. When Tony fell, the atmosphere instantly exploded. Such a cool way also made some guys hiding in dark corners watching here extremely jealous. A few days later, the hearing began as usual. A stubborn congressman loudly accused Tony of disregarding the peacekeeping declaration issued by the United Nations and arbitrarily bringing weapons into the territories of other countries to attack armed organizations of an undefined nature. Tony was naturally disdainful, and directly produced evidence to prove that he punished criminals and eliminated evil, and even produced evidence that he and Rhodes attacked together. If the armed organization I am attacking with the military is not a terrorist, then is the military launching a war? If that is the case, I will take back the Mark II in accordance with the agreement. In an instant, the Air Force general in the audience at the hearing turned cold and glared at the congressman in the chair. For the government, if it cannot control the Stark family, which possesses cutting-edge weapons technology, national security will be threatened. Therefore, many congressmen want to seize Tony Stark's armor and his arc reactor technology on the grounds that he is hiding sophisticated and dangerous weapons. As a peerless genius, Tony could definitely see the other party's intentions. He also asked the lawyer to bring out the law and the principles that the United States of America has always adhered to, saying that everything Tony owned was his own personal property. The steel battlesuit and Kamen Rider armor belonged to Tony. The crystallization of Stark's personal wisdom, the government has no right to let Tony Stark contribute this technology. Tony also explained that the steel battlesuit is not a weapon, but a prosthetic limb that benefits human society, and he also showed a picture of Bucky with a mosaic on his face as evidence. The security guards at Stark Building are retired military soldiers who lost an arm because of the war. This prosthetic limb can make them as sensitive as their own arms and have the same sensitivity as ordinary limbs. The cost of this technology is too high at this stage. I believe it will be used in the future. It will be promoted to society on a large scale in the next 20 years. Bucky couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth in front of the TV. It turned out that this was the purpose of Tony taking photos of him that day. Unexpectedly, the elite soldier of the Howling Commandos would now become a disabled retired soldier. Tony argued eloquently and even mocked the congressman in public. Not to be outdone, the congressman had to invite Justin Hammer from Hammer Industries. This Justin Hammer has always regarded Tony as a stumbling block in his life. He even tried to make a steel battlesuit privately in order to defeat Tony. However, the cost was too high and the technology was not mature enough, so all failed. If this technology is mastered by other countries, such as Russia or even some countries in the Middle East, then the United States will be in danger. Justin Hammer thought he was handsome and leaned against the congressman's desk. Tony scoffed, "Hammer Industries has always been a helper for Stark Industries. I can proudly say that no one can make a steel battlesuit in the next 20 years. My technology can maintain world peace, just like the military's war machine like this. If used in a foreign war, the energy supply will be stopped immediately. Kamen Rider's technology has always been a mystery. Tony Stark, please tell us why you didn't use the more advanced Kamen Rider technology yourself but handed it over to a mysterious person? Who is this mysterious person? Is it possible? Will it pose a threat to the country?" Justin Hammer has another burst of output. He feels that the Kamen Rider is not made by Tony Stark. Tony said without a blush or a heartbeat, "This technology is so cutting edge that no one will even be able to reproduce it in the next 50 years. Just like I registered the names of 2 new elements just after the Chinese New Year this year." The reporters behind him were in an uproar. They were able to discover 2 new elements at the same time. This was really shocking. Some people even wrote the news title shocking. In the future, he can surpass Einstein. It's like some people can't catch up with a genius flash of inspiration even if they work hard all their lives. Tony looked at Justin Hammer and said meaningfully. Justin Hammer stared hatefully at Tony standing in the spotlight. Tony left the hearing venue gracefully, and shortly after leaving, he held a press conference to continue dissing Hammer Industries. He also announced that one of the new elements had been applied to the city's power supply. Business. Chapter 38. The hearing ended with Tony's victory, but some things won't stop with his victory. Damn Tony Stark! In the messy utility room, someone gritted his teeth and cursed at the scene on the TV, greeting Tony with all kinds of obscenities. Boom! The man slapped his hands on the table, causing even the items on the table to vibrate. On the workbench next to him, 2 bright long whips flashed with electric light. In recent days, Tony has not been showing off, but has seriously done what an entrepreneur should do. He goes to work every day, reads documents in the chairman's office, and occasionally takes charge of the power supply in New York City. With the power supply from the giant arc reactor and the reduction of electricity prices, people's evaluation of Stark International increased for a while. This also caused a run on the Osborne Group, which could only passively follow the reduction in electricity prices. In order to compete with Stark Industries, it even offered various benefits to retain old users. Different from the original work, Tony did not poison the elements, but actively participated in various public welfare undertakings and conducted his favorite research. "Tony, I'm really not used to you being like this." Pepper looked at Tony, who was working diligently, and felt quite uncomfortable. That man who didn't care about anything and lived a messy life became so dedicated, and it felt like he was stimulated by something. After repeated questioning, Tony finally revealed the truth. "I've been checking how well you handle your work as CEO recently. It's good that you've managed the company in an orderly manner. So next, I'm going to do some things that a boss should do." Pepper? No. Pepper refused righteously. Isn't the so-called boss's job to do just to find cover models everywhere? Tony was ordered by Pepper to stay at work for a week. Tony watched Jianying leave, feeling itchy in his heart like a cat's paw. As time passed, Tony, who couldn't pretend anymore, finally revealed his true nature. He put his feet on the table and flipped through his phone. At the same time, Li Wei was practicing in the martial arts hall before the punch is punched. Relax your fist and let your wrist drop slightly downward. The moment the punch comes out and touches the target, your wrist suddenly turns up and you clench your fist to exert force. A punch goes straight down to hit the target head-on, just like this. After saying that, the older master took a stance, prepared his strength, and then punched the wooden man as fast as lightning. Bang! Bang! A big hole was left on the wooden man's belly. This is the inch punch. Using inch strength to hit your opponent, Master Bruce Lee knocked a man with a red belt in karate away with just 1 inch. Okay. Let's start practicing. Levi did not practice with this new group of people. He had mastered this skill not long ago. As he used the Kamen Rider belt more and more, he felt that his physical strength had been increased far beyond that of an average young man. Yesterday's inch boxing practice, he was able to punch through a wooden man. Now all he does is drive wooden dummies. Except for the old master who can compete with him, none of the apprentices is his opponent. In the evening, when Levi changed his clothes and was about to leave, an energetic old man in his 50s wearing sunglasses stopped Levi. From tomorrow on, you don't have to come again. He is the master of this martial arts school. Levi was stunned. Master, what do you mean? Are you being kicked out of the school? The martial arts gym has nothing more to teach you. You already have the basics. You are here just to hone your skills. Now your skills only need to accumulate some practical experience. So that's it. Levi didn't expect that he would leave so soon. In fact, during the holidays, he would also train in actual combat with Winter Soldier, and he even learned some joint techniques and other techniques when he came to the martial arts gym. Thank you very much for your teaching during this time. Levi bowed deeply. You're welcome, let's go. The old master waved his hand as if chasing someone away. Levi left the martial arts hall. The old master looked at Levi's back and nodded unconsciously. This is cool. Being a hero is not easy. The old master turned around and walked back to the martial arts hall. Levi suddenly turned around when he heard the word hero, but saw no one. Have you heard hallucinations? After graduating from the martial arts gym, Levi was in a pretty good mood. He didn't even teach the street gangster who was scribbling graffiti on the wall, but let him continue. I rode my motorcycle back to the beachfront villa, but there were many luxury cars parked outside the villa, and the lights inside the villa were full of entertainment and entertainment. Entering the house, Tony was hanging out with a group of beauties. When these women saw Levi coming in, they immediately surrounded him. Counting Levi who came back, there were only 3 men in the house. Colonel Rhodes had plunged into the milky white snow. Young man is back, come to the party, you can share in it. Tony greeted. Levi took an annoyed look at the long-legged model clinging to him, so he sat on the sofa and enjoyed the enchanting figures of the beauties. The strong smell of perfume filled the nostrils. I don't know how the 2 middle-aged men could endure this smell. There was also alcohol with a smoky smell in the air, mixed with the smell of some different perfumes. The smell is so indescribable that I would rather stay in the toilet. In fact, this kind of party is not interesting. It is just touching a few things and finally taking them to the room to go crazy. While thinking this, he patted the beautiful woman leaning on him to tell her to behave. The party lasted until night. Tony and Rhodes each left their favorite beauties behind, while Levi went to the laboratory to continue studying Leo's belt. 1 week later. The Stark Industrial Expo has officially begun. The expo will be held for a week. During this period, big names from all walks of life will gather, and bosses of various listed companies will come to participate, including Justin Hammer. Stark Industrial Expo can actually be regarded as a platform, where the most advanced works of various companies will be displayed. On the first day of the expo, Levi and Tony walked side by side and greeted people from all walks of life. Hey, Tony, how about letting my products be exhibited at this exhibition? Justin Hammer looked familiar. If your product is good enough, I can definitely give you a booth. Tony responded generously. Justin Hammer responded with a smile, thank you so much, I guarantee you will be surprised. Looking forward to the good news. Justin Hammer is just one of them, and even Osborn, who has not dealt with Stark recently, took the initiative to talk. Chapter 39. It has been found out that Professor Kurt Connors will attend the Stark Industries exhibition soon. A young man casually handed a piece of information to the Godfather in black behind the desk. After looking at it, the Godfather said, tell your men to bring Professor Kurt Connors back that day. This is related to the life of R.A.F. Enoch. Understood. After the young man in the baseball cap left, the Godfather in black took off his gloves and shook out the fine ash inside. If he were still young, he would definitely not take the risk of going to a world-famous exhibition to kidnap. But he became A.F. Enoch in middle age, and now his body is slowly turning into a desert. It won't be long before his body it will dry up because it cannot bear the power of Enoch. He knew how to solve this problem, but that required the presence of the king. The king has not yet awakened, and the time of his awakening is unknown. So how to extend the lifespan before the king wakes up requires the help of some external forces. After extensive screening, they chose the more experienced Professor Kurt Connors. Kurt Connors was a military doctor and became a university biology professor after retiring. Since he lost his right arm in the war, he has been studying limb regeneration technology. Now he has achieved considerable results. This technology can provide Austrian Fieno brings ways to extend your life. You must also participate in this operation. Dickon didn't want to care about this matter. He wanted to return to London as soon as possible. But the road from the United States to London cannot allow him to fly back with his own wings. He needs to use the other party's power to get a false certificate. Dickon finally agreed, I can help you make the weather worse. You know, I won't be involved in the specific matter of robbing people. The Godfather nodded in agreement. After Dickon left, the Godfather looked at his back greedily. Dickon was transformed from a vampire into Orpheus Enoch. He is stronger and has more vitality than ordinary Orpheus Enoch. At the same time, a strong Russian man who looked like a rock singer got into a Cadillac SUV at the New York airport. Friend, have you ever sang rock music? You know, like the Rolling Stones. Oh, I forgot, do I have to say Russian? Justin Hammer saw the strong man sitting in the car chattering. The strong man cleared his throat and said in pure English, that group of people said they could ask you to let me sneak into Stark's exhibition. Justin Hammer suddenly said enthusiastically, HYDRA hail. The strong man glanced at Justin Hammer inexplicably, nodded, and responded in a low voice, HYDRA hail. The strong man recalled the people who suddenly came to his door a few days ago. They helped him take revenge on Stark, and he helped them obtain Tony Stark's Kamen Rider technology. Although it was just a transaction, the strong man also guessed from the few words that the other party's identity hid a major secret. Anton Vank, after solving Tony Stark, we will invite you to join the organization. This matter should be regarded as a test. Although Anton Vank disdained this sentence, he still cared a little about it. What he didn't expect was that there was a fool in front of him who took the initiative to expose himself. Can such a person become the boss of a company in the United States? The United States is really bad. Enter the factory owned by Hammer Industries, where many armors similar to the Tony Stark battlesuit are produced. It's just that these imitation steel battlesuits are obviously inferior, with poor materials, texture, and technology. I hope to put these steel robots on the Stark exhibition. As long as someone can make a steel battlesuit like Tony Stark, he must hand over the complete technology. Justin Hammer still wants to compare Tony. Instead of killing him. Maybe this is also a kind of simplicity. Anton Vank responded with a sinister smile, I can help you. That's great, I'll take you to meet those programmers. The last day of the exhibition has always been regarded as the release date of major products. Among them are the blockbuster products of various companies. These companies did not have Hammer Industries in the past, but things are different now. Tony gave Justin Hammer a chance, finally giving Hammer Industries a chance to turn around. Bang! 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 Fireworks bloom in the night sky like sunflowers in full bloom, and the brilliant colors reveal the start of the exhibition on the last day. Familiar people such as Tony, Pepper, Levi, and Rhodes appeared in the front row of the audience below the stage. The first product is a product of the Osborn Group, which is just a mechanical prosthesis. The goal is to be the first to seize Stark's market. Prosthetics are also a product that Osborn Group has always had. Professor Kurt Connors stood on the stage and introduced the various uses of prosthetic limbs. They are highly flexible, more simulated than real arms, can be controlled sensitively, and can even do heavy work. Professor Connors also announced the price and release date, and the price can be said to be quite affordable. Osborn in the audience is very confident in his own products. This time, he is completely taking a people-friendly approach to seize the market. Didn't Tony say that his perfect prosthetic will take 20 years to perfect, so he will have no way to go? As time went by, it was finally the turn of Hammer Industries. Justin Hammer couldn't hold back the smile on his face. He stood on the stage and after a non-nutritious meal, he said, "Then please take a look at the products of Hammer Industries that are about to go global." Justin Hammer pressed the button in his hand in front of everyone. The audience was silent. After a few seconds, there was no movement, and the audience began to talk. It's been a long time, but nothing has come out. Tony said impatiently, "If I had known better, I wouldn't have let this guy come out and embarrass himself." Indeed, it's too late to say anything now. Rhodes agreed. Suddenly a reporter in the audience shouted, "Look, it's in the sky." Everyone looked up and saw several flames running toward the venue with smoke in the dusk sky. "Eddie, your eyes are really good," the reporter's companion praised. A reporter named Eddie boasted, "My eyes are rulers." The flames came closer and closer, eventually settling on the stage. Everyone's eyes widened when they saw what was on the stage. It turned out to be a steel battlesuit. Tony couldn't help but sit up straight, staring at the steel battlesuit that landed on the stage. It looked similar to his steel battlesuit, and there was a luminous object in the center, which looked like an arc reactor. Tony thinks this is impossible. There is no way anyone can copy the arc reactor. Let me introduce epic-making war weapons. War armor. Justin pointed at the products and talked about them: unmanned driving, super advanced missiles, light Gatling guns, and super thrusters. It sounded high-end, but he didn't notice that the pocket missiles on the back of the war armor behind him had popped out, and the head-scanning positions had been rotated and adjusted to where Tony Stark was. Levi realized something was wrong, took out the lost drive and inserted the eternal memory directly. At the moment when Levi transformed, Tony also realized what was directly in front of Pepper, but the missiles on the shoulders of the 4 war armors had already been launched. Boom! 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 Flames instantly enveloped the front row, and the sudden sound of explosions instantly caused chaos in the venue. What's going on? How could this happen? Justin Hammer looked at everything that happened with a pale face. Justin Hammer suddenly realized it, and his face instantly became ugly. Chapter 40. Is it possible? Anton Vank! Justin shouted through gritted teeth. The flames suddenly rolled up, and the figure in the cloak waved his hand casually in the flames, and the flames around him instantly dissipated. Tony and others were also intact behind Levi. Tony quickly took out the red iron box under his feet and stepped in with both feet. The iron box instantly opened and wrapped around Tony's body, and the steel battlesuit was quickly put on. "Tony, what's going on?" Pepper asked in panic. Tony said viciously, "That BD Justin wants to kill us." Justin heard the words and quickly explained, "Nonsense, I didn't. It must be that despicable guy Anton Vank. He is your enemy." Anton Vank, who eavesdropped and observed the venue through the mecha, did not expect that this guy Justin would sell himself out so quickly. "Idiot! Trash!" Anton Vank cursed with disdain. "Road, Happy, take Pepper and leave." Tony defended Pepper to the death. In his heart, Pepper had long been an extremely important person. Rod pulled Pepper and urged, "Let's go, Pepper." Then he said to Tony, "Tony, wait for me, I will equip the war machine." At the moment Levi had already rushed onto the stage, swinging out the eternal dagger and instantly piercing the chest core of a war armor. "Come with me." A familiar yet unfamiliar voice came, and a beautiful red-haired woman looked dashing in a tight suit. "You are?" Pepper felt that her mind was in a mess. S.H.I.E.L.D. Agent, Natasha Romanoff. Natasha Romanoff took the initiative to reveal her identity. "I hope you can protect Pepper." Tony said nothing, rushed to the stage and fired the energy cannon he had accumulated in his hand at a war armor that was about to attack Levi. Hisai, the hot laser instantly penetrated the war armor. The war armors on the stage were not strong, and Levi could easily deal with them. These armors were also equipped with conventional thermal weapons, and did not have energy weapons like Tony's steel battlesuit. The two brothers worked together to dismantle the war armor on the stage, and Tony began to look for Justin's figure. He ran away a long time ago. Levi saw Justin leaving. This kind of guy can run away, but a monk can't run away from the temple. Then he continued, "This is just the beginning. On this occasion, if you have decided to take action, you will not stop easily. You just don't know the other party. What other means are there?" Tony's heart sank and he suddenly thought, what happened? Could it be Pepper's place? With S.H.I.E.L.D. protection, maybe. Before Levi could finish speaking, J.A.R.V.I.SS voice reminder arrived. "Sir, S.H.I.E.L.D. sent a warning that a war armor is pursuing Miss Pepper." Levi shrugged, "Well, they are overestimated. Damn it." Tony started the thrusters and flew towards Pepper's position. Levi, who originally wanted to go along, discovered something interesting using his eternal detection ability. This incident was just caused by that guy Anton Vank, so it wasn't a big problem. What made him confused was how did Tony, who didn't go to Morocco to race, get acquainted with Justin Hammer. At the moment, a motorcade was about to leave the venue. Suddenly, a dazzling fireball struck and exploded under the chassis of the leading vehicle, overturning the vehicle. The vehicle exploded in mid-air, completely sealing the exit. "What's going on? What's going on?" Norman Osborn shouted in panic. "Boss, something is wrong. Someone is attacking us," the bodyguard responded, pointing to the figure standing on the railing. "It must be the enemy that Tony Stark has provoked. The other party must want to use us as hostages to force Tony Stark." Norman Osborn said he was smart. The bodyguard used his driving skills and turned around, planning to find another exit. "I didn't expect someone to attack the Stark exhibition. Thank God." The young man wearing a baseball cap hid in the shadows and watched everything that happened. Originally, the time for them to take action was to take Professor Connors away quietly without anyone noticing when he was on his way back to the company after leaving the exhibition. As a result, Hammer Industries attacked the Stark exhibition and took advantage of the chaos to fake the death of Professor Connors and blame it for this man-made disaster. "Osborn is leaving, we only want Professor Connors." The young man's order was given, and Aofe Enoch, who was in position, began to destroy the cameras here. Professor Connors did not ride in the same car as Osborn, but in another vehicle. An Orpheus suddenly appeared in front of the car driven by Professor Connors. Professor Connors was already quite young, and his eyesight was so short that he couldn't see clearly whether the person who jumped out was a human or a monster. Frightened by this, Connors stepped on the brakes in a panic, and with a sharp brake sound, Enoch, who was in front of the car, quickly stepped forward and tore off the door, knocking Professor Connors unconscious with a slap. He carried Dr. Connors away quickly, and a few minutes later a firebomb detonated Professor Connors' car, and a body wearing Connors' coat was thrown into the flames. Aofe Enoch succeeded and left quickly. The young man who had been hiding in the darkness and commanding was also preparing to leave. He pulled the yo-yo back into his hand and was about to take a step when a playful voice came from behind. "It's really an interesting toy, let me play with it." Sample. The young man turned around suddenly and saw a man wearing white armor and a black cloak fluttering in the wind standing there. "Kamen Rider." Levi joked, "Your little actions are so incomprehensible. Have you reduced yourself to kidnapping a disabled person? You actually discovered us. Forget it. Dealing with you here is like getting rid of a threat. I really don't know why the boss slapped you." The young man threw away his baseball cap, and there were scary lines on his face. Suddenly, he changed from a thin young man to a strong, heavily armored monster. The ferocious and terrifying face paired with the huge amounts of horns was like a demon crawling out of hell, and the violent aura exuding was like the power of a dragon. Dragon Orpheus Enoch. "It's really surprising." Levi was not afraid at all, but became more and more excited. The dragon Aofe Enoch roared, waving his claws violently and attacking Levi. Levi drew out the eternal dagger and rushed towards the opponent. The dragon claw was blocked by Levi with one hand, and the eternal dagger stabbed straight into the opponent's chest. Bah! The tip of the eternal dagger was blocked by the heavy armor on Enoch, the dragon, leaving only a white mark. Levi grabbed the opponent's paw, used the force to jump up briskly, kicked the opponent continuously, and finally kicked the dragon Aofe Enoch far away with a heavy blow. Levi landed and took out the ace memory. With a flick of his hand, the black ace memory transformed into a unicorn memory and was inserted into the slap slot. Dragon Aofe Enoch rushed over with heavy steps, slashing from top to bottom with his claws, trying to split Levi in two. Levi moved away in one step, and his claws landed on the ground, instantly making a big hole in the ground. The power of the dragon Aofe Enoch is stronger than the Aofe Enoch I have encountered before. Chapter 41. Unicorn. Maximum Drive. He pressed hard against long Aofe Enoch's body and punched him in the waist. Boom! The right fist wraps around the spiral gas and creates sparks. Dragon Aofe Enoch flew backwards, rolled twice on the ground, and then stood up using his claws to support his body. "If you only have this kind of strength, you can die." Levi unplugged the unicorn memory and replaced it with the eternal memory. Eternal. Maximum Drive. The sound effect came, and the eternal dagger condensed its energy and turned into a long and narrow sword, slashing at the dragon Aofe Enoch. In the roaring explosion, the heavy armor of dragon Aofe Enoch exploded, and his figure became slimmer, looking more like a dragon from a fantasy drama. What? As soon as Leeway reacted, long Aofe Enoch was already approaching. Phew! Levi was slapped away by a claw and his whole body hit the wall. "Enoch, the dragon Orpheus, in draconic form. Although you can rely on your eternal dynamic vision to capture the opponent, your body cannot react at all. See who you can kill. The dragon man opened his arms and released a powerful electric current from the horns on his head. Levi turned to avoid the electric current. You really think I can't do anything? Levi's tone was as usual, and he took out the memory to switch. XL. Maximum drive, call out. A flash of light flashed and Levi disappeared. Dragon Man's electric shock failed, and when he was surprised, a voice came from behind, trigger. Maximum drive. Trigger memory. The eternal dagger emits blue light waves and hits the Dragon Man from behind. The Dragon Man was knocked out and landed on the ground. Just as Levi was about to beat up the drowned dog, a fire bomb came and exploded in front of him, blocking his sight. Swinging his cloak to extinguish the flames, the Dragon Man disappeared, leaving only a figure in the distance holding a double-pointed spear. Levi didn't expect that he couldn't even get rid of the dragon AF Enoch. AF Enoch of this level really had to kill him with one blow. Let's go find Tony. Unplug the eternal memory and cancel the transformation. Press the small button on the belt, and the holographic projection pops up. There were originally only 3 knight heads, but now there are 4. This knight was unlocked not long ago. Pressing the knight's portrait, the lost drive turned into fluid and rapidly changed its appearance. It eventually changed into a belt similar to Delta's, which is also the knight's belt from Kamen Rider 555 and is even closely related to Delta. Open the white flip phone and enter the transformation code 315, then insert it into the slot in the center of the belt. Complete. The dark blue photon channel extends from the belt and quickly wraps around the body. As a dazzling light illuminates the dim path, the transformation is completed. The dark blue photon blood exudes a faint light, which is extremely eye-catching in the dark. The white outer armor is made of smooth material. The shape of the helmet is based on the Greek letter Psi. The overall look is much more high-profile than Delta. Kamen Rider Emperor. Start the jet propeller on your back, and the powerful power drives your body to fly. When passing by the building next to the venue, Levi saw Bucky covered in injuries, with Pepper and Black Widow still intact beside him. There are some stains on Pepper's face, Black Widow's leather jacket also has a lot of damage, and Winter Soldier's metal arm seems to have been shortened. It's hard to imagine what happened to them. Where's Tony? Levi flew over the heads of the 3 of them and asked, how did you end up like this? Levi. Pepper's eyes lit up and he said quickly, go find Tony quickly. That enemy has an electromagnetic pulse that can instantly render all electronic equipment useless. Pepper already knew the little secret between Levi and Tony. Kamen Rider was not Tony's work, but a mysterious package from Levi's hometown. Tony once asked Pepper to send someone to search, but he didn't find anything there. What's special? The incident was brought up again after Pepper learned of the secret between the 2. There is a high probability that Levi's armor will not be affected by electromagnetic pulses. I know. Levi glanced at Black Widow without leaving any trace and then left. She has big red waves and looks better with blonde hair. He knew that Nerissa who was approaching him was the Black Widow. He didn't know exactly what purpose the other party had, but it should be related to the knight's belt. When it is delivered to your doorstep, you don't have to worry about the beautiful female agent afterwards. Naturally, there is no psychological burden. I believe that the love that occurs with the female agent is just like drinking too much with Uncle Sam. Bucky saved Pepper again, and Tony's debt to Bucky was getting bigger and bigger. Since he got the Heavenly Emperor's belt, he hasn't tried it yet. Through the powerful vision of heaven and earth, searching at high altitudes, Levi quickly discovered Tony's traces, and a violent fire broke out in a tropical garden. The Emperor of Heaven's vision can see objects the size of a grain of rice on the ground even at an altitude of 4,000 meters. Swoop toward the tropical gardens. At the moment, a group of mechas surrounded Tony and Rhodes. The largest mecha seems to be a replica of the Iron Overlord. It is very large and equipped with quite a few heavy weapons. Tony Stark, pay back everything your family owes me. A rough voice came from the mecha. Tony, I didn't expect your family to have done something like this. What should we do? Rhodes still had the time to make sarcastic remarks even though he was surrounded. Tony was also confused. He didn't know much about the previous generation. He didn't even know how the relationship between his biological father and his biological uncle had deteriorated. So he could only say, I have time to find someone to ask, but I won't solve him now. It's not possible anymore. Count me in. As soon as he finished speaking, Levi directly launched a sneak attack, shooting at the largest mecha with the weapons carried by the flight attacker, the jet flight machine behind it. The Emperor's flight attacker can activate the rifle mode, and the bullets fired are high-density energy bullets transmitted by photon blood. The lethality is the same as that of Delta's blaster, but the number of bullets is completely different from that of Delta's blaster, which only has 12 rounds. Comparable. This battle suit is so hot. Rode couldn't help but praise when he saw Levi suppressing the opponent. Levi moved and attacked at the same time, his gun muzzle spitting fire, leaving Anton Vank's big man no chance to fight back, and he could only block with the shield on his arm. The material of this shield can block most light projectile attacks, but it also gradually cracks under gunfire. Anton Vank, who controlled all the mechas, asked some of the mechas to attack. For a moment, energy beams condensed in the hands of the surrounding mechas. Tony and Rhodes were also prepared. The big mecha also turned on the transmitter on its back. Aim at Levi and launch a tracking missile. Chapter 42. Levi retreated quickly, pointed his gun at the missile and started firing. Several blue light bullets hit the missile and detonated it directly. The airflow generated by the huge explosion swept Levi away, and the propeller could not be stabilized. Levi simply gave up flight, pulled out the handle of the propeller, and switched to the rotating stick blade mode. The spinning stick blade is a weapon based on the oriental stick. Levi fell towards the ground, and the moment he landed, a wave of dustmen was stirred up. He landed without any buffer, and rushed towards the big mecha in one stride. The big mecha locked Levi firmly, and the Gatling with both arms fired wildly. It's just that his machine gun is like scratching an itch for the Emperor's defense. Seeing that the machine gun was ineffective, the big mecha abandoned the machine gun and replaced it with a flamethrower. The blazing flames surged out, and this time Levi had to avoid its edge. Tony, who had dealt with the other mechas, landed next to Levi, and pointed one hand at the approaching flames. As the energy beam shot out, the beam broke through the flames and opened up a path for Levi. Levi rushed towards the big mecha again, and Rhodes' support arrived at this time. 2 missiles exploded on the head of the big mecha, attracting its attention. Levi pressed the enter key on the Emperor's belt, and the exceed charge sound effect came out. Energy filled his arms into the spinning stick blade, and waving the spinning stick blade, Levi jumped up and approached the big mecha, waving his hands wildly. The blue flowing shadow is like a shooting star streaking across the sky. The Emperor of Heaven kills. The large mecha that was still able to resist gradually became silent due to Levi's attack. Levi stopped, and as the blue light of the spinning stick's sharp blade disappeared, the large mecha shattered into pieces of iron and fell to the ground. However, the mecha's driving seat was empty. No one. Levi suddenly felt something bad. I saw a device under the iron block suddenly emitting blue light and releasing electric current. A blue electromagnetic wave expanded rapidly, and Tony and Rhodes' battlesuits suddenly lost power and were crushed by the weight of the battlesuits. It's electromagnetic pulse. Tony shouted, "That guy is hiding somewhere else." After that, he quickly disarmed the mecha, exposing Rhodes and Tony's real bodies to danger. At this moment, a roar came from the sky. A black humanoid mecha loaded with 2 whips flashing with electric flowers descended slowly. Anton Vank. Tony pretended to be calm and said, "It's always me this time." Click, the mask opened, revealing a large, rough bronze face. Anton Vank smiled ferociously, revealing 2 rows of yellow teeth in a ferocious manner. "Stark owes me too much, use your life to repay it, Tony Stark." After that, Anton Vank swung his whip towards Tony's face. "Cut it off." Poof. A blue light bomb struck, deflecting the long whip. The long whip with a powerful electric current fell to the ground and exploded. The powerful energy just split the ground into a ravine. Rhodes swallowed, looked at Tony and said, "Why do you have such a deep grudge against this guy? Are you going to cut your body into pieces? Did you kill his father?" "Fake. I didn't know." "Leave this to Levi, let's go quickly, don't cause any trouble." Tony took Rhodes and ran away. Tony had good physical strength after exercising during this period, and he ran a long distance in one breath. To deal with Stark, it's impossible without clearing all the obstacles around him. Anton Vank flicked his whip, and the whip seemed to be stimulated, and the limp whip turned into a straight spear. "I'm Stark too, maybe there's something we can talk about." "No need to talk. Stark can only die." The electric spear pierced Levi's chest. The electric light on the spear surged, but Levi didn't want to be shocked. He rolled to avoid it, took the opportunity to pull out the Emperor's phone, and transformed into blaster mode to fight back. The mobile blaster mode can only fire 12 rays of bullets in a short period of time, and each shot is precious. Locking the opponent's timing to swing his whip, Levi fired several shots at the shoulder joints of the Anton Vank mecha, and all the light bullets hit the joints of the mecha. Shape-shifting occurred during shutdown. Anton Vank could only lift his arm and could not put it down. Even with one arm missing, Anton Vank is also quite smart. Since Levi likes close combat, he simply keeps his distance with whips, missiles, and machine guns, and takes turns fighting. The electric whip came, and Levi used the sharp blade of the rotating stick to resist the whip, sprinted, and struck Anton Vank down with one blow. The machine gun on Anton Vank's shoulder kept turning, trying to stop Levi's footsteps, but these ordinary bullets were really ineffective. Death. Anton Vank had another killing move. When Levi was only 5 or 6 meters away from him, an anti-tank gun blasted out from the other shoulder. Levi couldn't help being shocked when he saw this situation. He turned the sharp blade of the rotating stick to protect his arm with the blade, and raised his hand to block. Boom! The violent explosion was deafening. I killed Stark! Anton Vanko shouted almost madly. Exceed charge! A figure rushed out of the smoke, its fists flashing with blue light, and it rushed straight towards Anton Vank's chest. Heavenly shock! Hammering his fists into the mecha, Levi turned his hands and forced the mecha open. He grabbed Anton Vank out, put the fingers of one hand together and straightened them out without mercy, and stabbed Anton Vank's body with one blow. Blood spurted out, dyeing Levi's white armor red with bright red, and blood flowed down the armor. Anton Vank's throat surged several times, and he lost his breath before he could speak. Pulling out his hand, Levi shook his arm and spilled the blood on the floor. Turning around and picking up the broken spinning stick blade on the ground, Levi went to find Tony and Rhodes. The anti-tank weapon just now made his body feel as if he had been hit hard by a hammer. His energy and blood surged, and his anger surged. Otherwise, Levi would not have gone up and killed Anton Vank with one blow. Levi admitted that he had underestimated the enemy. He did not expect that the anti-tank equipment was so powerful. Although it did not penetrate the Emperor's armor, the shock and aftermath were too strong. Just after Levi left, a figure fell from the sky. Seeing the death of Anton Vank, he couldn't help but sigh. There is no chance to transform into a Enoch. What a pity for this smart man. The moonlight fell, and this figure was completely revealed. It was Dickon. Now that he has lost his subordinates, Dickon really wants to find some helpers. If I return to the London castle in my current state, I should be able to summon a group of vampires, by then. Dickon looked down at the grey hand, and then held it tightly. At that time, as long as the Blood King is swallowed. Chapter 43. A few days later. The incident at Stark's exhibition caused a great sensation. The military also wanted to use Tony's steel battlesuit and Kamen Rider technology for free, but Stark refused on the grounds that it was detrimental to world peace. If I hand over this technology to the US military and the rapid expansion of the military's strength threatens world peace, then as an ambassador of world peace, I will bear the blame, so I will package both technologies and send them to various countries. Let the strengths of all countries be equal. You have all seen how bad the impact of a steel battlesuit that is not under the control of the ambassador of peace will be. The US military even has its own nuclear bombs stolen by various organizations every day, so it is impossible to defend it. That's right, just the day after the attack, Tony got himself a peace ambassador status at the United Nations. This is a threat, and the US military has to give in. The people also support Stark. After all, the people of New York have indeed felt the benefits brought by cheap electricity prices. The Air Force Command believed that Tony had already brought out a war machine as support, so there was no need to push too hard, so everyone used Poxielo to postpone the prostitution conference, and wait until Tony makes another mistake to seize the opportunity to blackmail him again. Justin Hammer was arrested for endangering national security, and Hammer Industries was acquired by the military. The military wanted to start with the war armor reproduced by Hammer Industries, and the arc reactor was brought by Anton Vank. Anton Vank did not leave any data after his death, so everything is still the same, except for the shell. That's all. Not long after Justin Hammer was arrested by the military, he died mysteriously in prison. The matter was settled, and Tony continued to optimize the steel battlesuit, striving to create a stronger steel battlesuit. Levi's internal organs were slightly displaced due to the shock, but he recovered after a period of training. During this period, Nerissa came to visit Levi frequently, but she didn't show up for a period of time. I don't know if she was on a mission or something. Boy, show me the armor of the Emperor of Heaven. The stabilizer carried by the Emperor of Heaven can control the powerful energy output of the photon blood and make it more stable. As long as that device can be reproduced, the experiment can go further. Tony found Levi. The two people's project has made new progress. No problem. Although the two of them are not yet able to completely reproduce Delta, they have sorted out some steps and believe that they will be able to produce a low-performance Leo cavalry in the near future. While the two were working frantically in the laboratory, Levi received a call from Phil Coulson. Hey, Levi, long time no see. I heard you made a splash at the Stark exhibition. Congratulations. Levi didn't know what Phil Coulson wanted to do, so he said, this is nothing to be congratulated for. I lay in the hospital for a long time. What can I do for you, a busy man? It's like this. A hammer fell from the sky in a small town in Mexico. I want you to come over and see if you can lift it. After all, you are the strongest person I know. Wow, why don't you invite me to do this kind of fun thing? Tony came over. Phil Coulson heard Tony's voice and said decisively, Tony, please come along if it's convenient. There are indeed some technical difficulties. Levi transformed into the Emperor of Heaven and went with Tony to the location sent by Phil Coulson. The Emperor of Heaven can fly to an altitude of 5,000 meters and fly for a long time at a speed of 820 kilometers per hour, but it is still slower than Tony's steel battlesuit. The current Mark 7 armor has a maximum speed of 966 kilometers per hour. But TND's short-term strong acceleration can reach 100 meters in only 0.006 seconds. Arrive at the location based on positioning. From the sky, it can be seen that this place has been surrounded, and there are many patrolling Special Forces members nearby to prevent idlers from breaking in. The two fell outside the shed built by SHYDRA. A Special Operations team member recognized Levi and Tony who had landed and immediately called Phil Coulson over the intercom. Phil Coulson ran out to meet the two. After seeing the two, he smiled and said, I've been waiting for you for a long time. We came here as quickly as possible. Tony opened his helmet out of courtesy. Phil Coulson led the two people into the greenhouse, and Hawkeye also came out to say hello. A madman broke in last night, shouting names like Asgard, God King Odin, Thor, etc. We sent him to the lunatic asylum. Phil Coulson said about last night's incident. Thor was sent to the lunatic asylum, and I don't know what Phil Coulson's expression was when he learned the other party's identity. Levi looked at the hammer in the center. Two scientific researchers were analyzing the hammer. This is a hammer that fell from the universe. Tony turned on the scanner of the steel battlesuit and analyzed the material in the hammer. J.A.R.V.I.S quickly indicated that it could not be searched. Phil Coulson is also very curious about this hammer and told the public in recent days, this hammer is very special. No one can lift it. Someone even dragged it with a pickup truck and couldn't pull it out before. Let me try. Tony stepped forward and held the handle of the hammer. Tony used the power of the steel battlesuit, fully opened the thrusters, and used all his means to pull out the hammer, but it still didn't move. Li Wei, who transformed into the Emperor of Heaven, also tried to lift the hammer. The moment he held the hammer, Levi suddenly felt in a trance, as if his spirit had traveled through space, and he saw the seaside under the sunset. An old man was sitting on the rocks looking at the sea, looking very lonely. Illusion. At this time, the sound of 3 children playing in the distance was heard. An older girl ran over with 2 little boys, shouting "Father, Father" around the old man. The old man smiled, lowered his head and stroked the heads of the 3 children, making him seem less lonely. However, the setting sun was soon covered by a burst of rain. Levi glanced at the sky and then looked back at the old man. The 3 children had disappeared. The old man stood up, turned his back to Levi and said, "You are a very special human being. Even the Supreme God is paying attention to you, and so is the Sorcerer Supreme. Midgard is really special." The old man turned around, and Levi saw that he only had one eye. Levi suddenly thought of something and said in surprise, "Are you Odin?" "It's me." Odin showed a kind smile, but this kind smile seemed a bit ferocious to Levi. Odin put his palm against Levi's forehead and followed a subtle force transfer. Odin's smile became even better. The great god gave you a gift. In this case, I will help you. Levi felt something was about to fall and subconsciously reached out to catch it. Chapter 44. You need to do me a small favor. It's a very simple thing. The future king of Asgard has not yet had the consciousness to be a king. Odin suddenly fell into memories, and then he just heard him sigh. Thor has never lacked courage since he was a child. Always moving forward bravely and resolutely refusing to admit defeat, he has a high reputation in Asgard. When he grows up, he also knows how to protect his home and people. But he lacks one quality that a king should have, which is sacrifice and dedication. This time Thor comes to Earth, you just want him to understand the meaning of these two words. Levi didn't expect Odin to be so boring. He let Thor be the God King for 2 days, and then used Asgard's enemies to attack Asgard to force Thor to protect the people. When the time comes, he will be asked to choose between his friends and the people, and shouldering the responsibility of a king, Thor has to sacrifice. Thinking of this, Levi's eyes suddenly turned cold. Odin threw Thor to earth just because he didn't want Asgard to suffer losses. Odin seemed to have guessed Levi's thoughts and said, "Don't misunderstand me, kid, I have no intention of causing harm to the earth. This is indeed the most suitable place for Thor to grow up. We have the same appearance, and the earth has been separated from Asgard's protection for too long. Others, Thor's identity is known to several worlds." Levi believed Odin's words. "Okay. How do I leave this spiritual world?" "Right away." Odin waved goodbye to Levi. Levi felt dazed for a while, and heard the voices of Tony and Phil Coulson in his ears. Tony shouted, "Levi? What's wrong with you? J.A.R.V.I.S." Phil Coulson shouted to the researchers behind him, "Check whether the hammer has changed." Levi shuddered, let go of the hammer, turned around and asked, "What happened?" Phil Coulson was relieved when he saw that Levi was fine. "Oh my god, you just need to be fine. You were motionless for 2 minutes. I thought you were being controlled by the hammer. What happened?" Seeing that there was no abnormality in Levi and no abnormality was detected in the J.A.R.V.I.S scan, Tony felt relieved. Levi released the transformation and then said, "I just unexpectedly felt a powerful force. I'm still very interested in this hammer. I'll stay here to study it today." Tony planned to stay. Levi had no interest in this hammer and said decisively, "Then I'll go to a nearby town." Levi remembered that Thor and his human girlfriend were in a nearby town. It won't be long before Thor's friends from Asgard will come to him, and Loki will also attack the destroyer. Levi thought to himself, maybe he could keep the destroyer. If Tony gets the destroyer, I wonder if he will make a destroyer battlesuit. Levi drove S.H.I.E.L.DS Chevrolet SUV to the nearest town. The town is not considered depressed, perhaps because many people have heard about the hammer falling. The tavern here is even more crowded, and many people are even dressed as cowboys, with revolvers hanging on their waists and the butts of the guns exposed. This is Levi's first time in New Mexico. The customs here are similar to what he knows. It shouldn't be too difficult to find Thor. You should be able to find him by visiting various taverns. What Levi didn't expect was that there were more than a dozen lighthouses in the small town. After visiting these dozen taverns, Levi almost visited the entire town. Fortunately, Levi finally saw a drunk man with long blonde hair and a body in the last tavern. There was a woman beside him, who was looking at the sad and drunk man with admiration. "Are you an adult?" The bar owner felt that with Levi's young face, he was probably not old enough to drink. Levi took out his social security card with his date of birth written on it. "I can drink." The boss then agreed to sell wine. "Brother, how about sharing a table?" Levi said as he approached the man with long blonde hair, holding a pint of beer. The blonde man glanced at Levi, then at the beer in his hand, and mocked mercilessly, "I won't share the same table with the little lamb." Levi said indifferently, "So you don't want the confiscated things?" The woman next to the strong man asked doubtfully, "What kind of game are you in?" "Some friends work there, don't know what to call them." Levi looked at the beauty. The beauty smiled sweetly, "My name is Jane Foster." Levi raised his eyebrows. He really found the right person. "Yes, where is this one? He looks like a bodybuilding coach." Levi looked at the blonde man. Just as Jane Foster was about to answer for the other party, she heard the strong man himself say, Thor Odinson. Boy, what is a bodybuilding coach? Thor in Norse mythology. Levi smiled deliberately. A bodybuilding coach is a person with a good figure who can also teach others how to get a good figure. Jane quickly mentioned Thor and said, that's just the way he is, don't worry about it. He likes Norse mythology very much. His unruly look does look like the strongest warrior of the Aesir clan in mythology, but that Thor died together with Jemengard in the end. Thor nodded at first, but when he finally heard that he had perished together, he immediately said dissatisfied, I will not die with a defeated general like that. You kid is really hard to make people like. That's really embarrassing. Levi drank the beer in one gulp, then put down the glass and asked, why do you think you are that Thor? I am Thor. But you don't know how to use thunder and lightning. I just lost my strength. That's really unfortunate. If you'd buy me a beer, maybe I could hear your story. I kind of like you, young man, so come and have a drink with me. Thor said cheerfully. Jane looked at Levi, her eyes getting more and more wrong, and thought to herself, isn't this guy here to cheat people out of drinking? Soon Thor began to talk about everything he had done for his hometown over the years, such as Heavenly Palace, Loki, Sif, God King Odin and so on. Jane was fascinated when she heard it, as if Thor really came from Asgard. Levi just drank one beer after another. Seeing this scene, the bar owner couldn't help but shake his head, sighing that people's hearts are not as old as they used to be. After drinking one glass of wine after another, Levi burped. Time passed little by little, and soon Thor was lying on the table unable to get up again. Levi also had a red face, and he didn't look like he was drunk. Jane looked at Levi and asked, where do you live? I haven't found a place to live yet. Are you here for a trip? I heard that a hammer fell from the sky. I was very interested and came to take a look. You are traveling on a budget, right? It doesn't matter, I'll buy this drink. Levi took out his wallet generously, and Jane was surprised by the number of large bills in it. Take me to find a place to stay. The shy Jane and Xiang Zhong immediately nodded in agreement. The two of them had made nearly $1,000 in the bar, and she had no money to treat them. And this thigh can't be let go, she has to rely on this person to get her research notes. Back. Chapter 45. Spend the night in a hotel in a small town. After Levi went out, he happened to meet Thor who was also going out. Brother, it turns out you are really here, let's go have a drink. Thor was overjoyed when he saw Levi. Drinking in the morning? Asgardians also spend their days and nights? Thor heard from Jane that Levi was the one who treated him to a drink last time, and that Levi was the one who was willing to listen to his complaints. Thinking of this, Thor took it upon himself to cross out Levi as someone worth making friends with, Mian de Tou, and human being's friend. Levi got in touch with Tony, and Tony called to tell Levi that he had some insights into the hammer's research. Tony would stay here for a few more days, so Levi simply accompanied Thor to the bar for another drink. It doesn't matter if I drink it, I will brag from noon to evening. The two of them staggered out of the tavern. The owner of the tavern couldn't help but sigh when he saw the two of them like this. What a good young man, but he was ruined by alcohol again. In fact, it was just some beer. The two of them didn't drink that high alcohol at all. It's not that he hasn't tried it before, but Thor feels that it's not pleasant to drink high spirits without sparkling wine. Levi's current physique is getting stronger and stronger as Delta's number of transformations increases, and alcohol is metabolized very quickly. When the two people walking arm in arm past a closed clothing store, Thor glanced at the window. Suddenly his expression changed, and said to Levi, you go back first, I have to go for convenience. Okay, go and come back quickly. Levi left slowly and leisurely, and he also noticed the scene in the window. A tall, thin man stood inside. After Levi left, Loki walked out of the display window. Brother. Loki looked at Thor with a heavy expression. Thor didn't notice Loki's expression, but shook Loki's shoulders. Loki. Think of a way. I want to go back to Asgard, and I want to ask my father why he took away my divine power. Loki slapped Thor's hand away and said with a sad face, my father has passed away. He was forcibly awakened from the sleep of Odin in order to reach a peace agreement with the giants of Jotunheim. The only condition of the giants of Jotunheim is to exile you forever, so, my father's last order before his death was for you to stay on Earth forever. How is that possible? Thor looked in disbelief. At this time, a slightly playful voice came, absolutely impossible. Thor, don't forget his title, the god of lies and mischief. Thor was stunned for a moment and then looked directly at Loki. He suddenly realized something and immediately said angrily, Loki, you are playing tricks on me again. Now you dare to seize the throne. Loki looked around angrily and found no one. Who is it? Hide your head and show your tail. Then he raised his lips and stopped pretending, and said to Thor, without your divine power, you can't do anything. Just watch me become the new king of Asgard. When I become the new king, I will give you the title. For the king of Midgard. My brother, that way you can be with your favorite Midgard girl forever. After Loki finished speaking, his body became lighter and lighter until it disappeared. Damn it! Come back! Thor pounced fiercely, but missed and fell to the ground like a dog. You are still so easily deceived. Goodbye to me. Before Loki could utter the last syllable, a thick arm suddenly strangled his neck. Thor looked up and saw a mysterious man standing on the roof holding Loki in a chokehold. Levi has transformed into Kamen Rider Joker, restraining Loki tightly. Seeing this sudden scene, Thor reacted immediately. With his strong body, he jumped up and climbed onto the roof with the help of the fence below. He grabbed Loki's hair. Loki was in pain and then an energy explosion hit Thor. Knocked away, he grabbed Levi's arm with both hands and slowly opened Levi's arm. Levi didn't expect Loki to be so powerful, even stronger than Joker, so he simply gave up on Loki and charged up his fist to hit Loki's face. The fist failed. Loki didn't know when he used the transposition magic, and all that was left behind was an afterimage. Levi searched around and couldn't find any trace of Loki. Thor climbed up from the ground in disgrace and gasped, Loki has left. This guy must be planning something. I have to go back to Asgard as soon as possible. How do you go back? Levi cancelled the transformation. Thor was stunned when he saw Levi at first, and then said with relief, you are the kind of special human being that Jane and the professor said. You are called a superhero. I am indeed special. Besides, I have met Odin. Thor was shocked, what? Have you seen Odin? He's still alive, you don't have to worry. When did you meet my father? You can see it after you touch the hammer. Levi said naturally. Thor suddenly fell silent. It was not that he had not touched Mjolnir, but Mjolnir gave him no response. Maybe his father hasn't been able to forgive himself yet. You brothers don't have a good relationship. Levi looked at Thor and shrugged. When Thor mentioned this, he felt bitter. He told Loki how he wanted him since he was a child, and he pulled Levi in again. They talked all night long, and Thor's arm-twisting attitude made Levi always feel that this guy was one of those men and women who would talk all night long when he was happy. Brother, when I go back, I will take you to conquer the 9 realms. Thor patted Levi on the shoulder with an appreciative look on his face. Let's talk about it when you go back. Levi sighed, walked to the window and looked at the rising sun. At this moment, a beam of light fell from the sky, and Levi quickly opened the window and stuck his head out to see this unusual scene. I saw a few people walking out of the light pillar, dressed in ancient military uniforms and holding weapons. Thor, it seems your friends are here to find you. Levi opened the window. Thor quickly ran over, and when he saw his friends outside the window, tears filled his eyes, and he said excitedly, they really have not forgotten me. Thor jumped out of the window, and with a pop, Thor landed on his face, surprising the Asgard trio and Sif. Human etiquette has not changed after so long. Hogun scratched his head, somewhat uncomfortable. They had appeared on Earth before, and humans at that time would kneel down to them at every turn, Hogun still remembered. After Sif saw the man's blonde hair and figure, he slapped Hogun on the back of the head and scolded, he is Thor. Open your eyes and see clearly. Thor got up from the ground, his grey-headed face looked like a beggar begging for food. P.S. The word count is enough, I will update it 10 times after it is released. Chapter 46. Sif is still good at recognizing people. He recognized Thor at a glance. Fernda alluded to it intentionally or unintentionally. Sif understood what Verda meant, but she was a little girl. Instead of blushing, she hurriedly ran towards the person she admired. Thor, it's great that I can meet you just after arriving on Earth. Sif looked at Thor with beautiful eyes shining. How did you get here? Sif said directly, Heimdall secretly sent us here. Heimdall was sold without any hesitation. Volstagg didn't want Sif to continue to flirt with her secretly, as it would delay things too much. Sif, let's take Thor away quickly, don't forget Loki. Yes, Thor, let's go. Loki activates the destroyer. Thor was shocked. What? What is Loki doing? He wants to seize the throne. The God King is still awake from Odin's sleep, and he wants to take this opportunity to kill you. Hogun directly told Loki's conspiracy. Felda said aggrievedly, Vestag has been following Loki recently. He saw Loki activate the destroyer and immediately came to find us. Loki also discovered him and used the destroyer to hunt us down. This is why Heimdall just sent us here. Sif looked silently and said, Heimdall may be resisting the destroyer now. The destroyer was created by God King Odin to resist the Celestials. How could Heimdall be the destroyer's opponent? At the moment, Asgard's Bifrost. Heimdall panted and knelt on the ground and looked up at the destroyer. Without the control of God King Odin, the destroyer would not be able to exert its due fighting power. But even the destroyer's combat effectiveness under Loki's control far exceeds that of the three warriors of Asgard. In addition, Heimdall did not want to destroy the destroyer. He knew the purpose of the destroyer, so he struggled not to fight back. If Odin was young, Heimdall might have unleashed all his power on the destroyer, but now Odin's age makes Heimdall know that this magical weapon is indispensable. Heimdall, let the destroyer go to Midgard. Odin's voice came through his mind. Heimdall was stunned at first, then relieved, and decisively used Bifrost to teleport the destroyer to Earth. Loki, who was behind the destroyer, thought Heimdall had surrendered to him, and said proudly, it would have been nice to have been like this, why waste time, Heimdall? Heimdall looked at Loki and couldn't understand why Loki was so obsessed with power. Loki, why is this necessary? You two grew up together. Did Thor treat you badly? Heimdall stood up and asked. Loki angrily said, when facing the giant wolf, this guy left me and ran away. I don't have such a brother. Heimdall took a long time and said expressionlessly, you were still young at that time. Loki was even more angry, that's what happens to all of you. It's always what Thor does. How Thor does it? And call me His Majesty the God King. Almost everyone in Asgard has a favorable impression of Thor, because Thor has the qualities that Asgardians admire, while Loki is a cunning magician who always hides behind his back and makes small moves, so he is naturally not welcome. Loki left Bifrost and returned to Asgard to take control of the destroyer. On the other hand, Thor fell silent as soon as he said he was leaving here. Then he looked directly at his friends and said solemnly, I can't leave. Midgard is also Asgard's territory. I can't watch this place be destroyed. Without divine power, you will only die when facing the destroyer. After you regain your divine power, you can hammer the destroyer no matter what you want. Fernanda wanted to continue to persuade Thor. At this time, a cold voice came, he is gone, what will happen to the people on Earth here? The immortal officials saw a young man coming behind Thor. At this time, the young man asked again, are you sure that Loki will not vent his anger on the humans on Earth? These people are not shameless enough to let the people on Earth take the risk for them. That's right, I can't leave. Midgard is also protected by Asgard. As their prince, how can I back down? Sif was slightly crazy, this was the Thor he knew. You will die. Thor. Verda was a little afraid of the destroyer, which was a magic weapon against the gods. Boom. The light beam descended, and a figure of huge amounts came out of the light beam. You will indeed die, my brother. Loki's voice came from the mechanical armor. Loki. Thor still had the illusion that Loki would not kill him, but he didn't expect that the destroyer had really come, and his illusion was shattered. The destroyer shoots a laser straight at Thor. Sif drew out his sword and shield, raised the shield and faced the ray directly. The ray cut through the air, and the surrounding space was even distorted due to the high temperature. Sif blocked the destroyer's ray, and the Asgard trio quickly held Thor out of the way. Seeing this, Levi did not dare to neglect. He took out the lost drive and inserted it into the eternal memory. Eternal. Transformation completed. Levi took out the eternal dagger and inserted it into the accelerated memory. XL. Maximum drive. Teleporting behind the destroyer, Levi pulled out the acceleration memory, replaced it with the unicorn memory and punched the opponent on the waist. Boom. Made of the hard Asgard URU metal material, a punch in the back of the destroyer only caused a burst of sparks. The laser stopped shooting and noticed the sneak attack, and the destroyer punched him. Levi jumped back to dodge, but the destroyer's attack was very fierce. One punch missed and then another kicked. Levi blocked with both arms, but was still kicked far away. His feet rubbed a ravine on the ground, and his arms went numb. What a powerful force! High temperature ray. Proud defense. Is this Odin's armor? Levi's arms were shaking due to the huge force, but he quickly replaced them with metal memory. His body burned with silver-gray flames, and the white shiny armor also turned into a metallic color. Metal memory can increase defense. The destroyer's mask opened, and a ball of flame exploded out of the neutral mask. The flame instantly transforms into high-temperature ray emission. Sigh. Levi ran to avoid the beam, but the destroyer locked Levi tightly, making it impossible for him to escape. Boom! 2 missiles flew over and hit the destroyer's head, causing the destroyer to stop attacking. Levi, what's going on with this big guy? Tony hovered in the air. Chapter 47. As soon as the destroyer turned his head, the high-temperature ray struck again. Tony wore a steel battlesuit and used full power, knocked Levi away and hugged his waist to save him from the destroyer's laser. The hot laser swept after Levi's figure, destroying and igniting all the surrounding buildings. It's just sunrise now, and many people are dying in their sleep. Listening to the screams around him, Thor roared, Loki. About to rush towards the destroyer, Thor was stopped by the 3 Asgard warriors. Asgard only has Thor who died in battle, not the coward who watched his people die. Thor's roar also cheered up the Asgard trio and Sif, and they subconsciously let go of Thor. Thor rushed towards the destroyer. Seeing this, Loki smiled and controlled the destroyer with a backhand to fly Thor away. I'm going to ravage you hard later. My brother. The 3 Asgard warriors also rushed towards the destroyer, while Sif went to find Thor who was knocked away. The Asgard trio cooperated extremely well and attacked the destroyer in unison. However, the destroyer was not something that the weapons in their hands could break through. Soon the 3 of them followed in Thor's footsteps. Such a big movement caused the nearby people to run away to death, and only a few survived. The destroyer's ray can continue to be output. Levi tried to use metal memory to add defense to himself to resist the destroyer's ray, but the blazing light even burned his eternal robe. Got fooled by that old coin scam. Levi gasped and pulled out the metal memory while saying, the armor of God King Odin. What? Tony frowned and realized that things were not simple. Where did Odin come from? Is there really a god? I'm afraid this will involve a family ethics drama. In short, the armor is now controlled by Loki, and the brave blonde man is Thor. Levi stood on the ground, watching the destroyer destroy everything. The kind that fights for the throne. J.A.R.V.I.S contacts Phil Coulson to speed up the evacuation of the crowd. Tony asked J.A.R.V.I.S to contact Phil Coulson. Levi said angrily, it's too late, let them start the rescue. What do you mean? Could it be that? Tony's breath was stagnant. Ordinary people would not be able to avoid such a sudden attack at this time. Tony gritted his teeth and looked for the strong blonde man just now, but found that he was nowhere to be seen. Where's that damn prince? Why doesn't he fight? God King Odin took away his divine power, and now he is no different from ordinary people. Levi replied. Tony shouted, then let us defeat it. J.A.R.V.I.S, 50% energy output. The energy was condensed in the palm of the hand, and a luminous cannon was raised to shoot at the destroyer's head. The moment the light cannon hit, the destroyer hit his head crookedly. The destroyer tilted his neck and his face instantly turned red. This was a precursor to firing a laser. Hide. Levi rolled to avoid it, not caring whether he would lose strength later, took out the spatial memory and inserted it into the slap slot. Zone. Maximum drive. XL, Bird, Cyclone, Dummy, Fang, Gene, Heat, Ice Age, Joker, Key, Luna, Metal, Nazca, Ocean, Puppeteer, Queen, Rocket, Skull, Trigger, Unicorn, Violence, Weather, Extreme Yesterday, Maximum Drive. In an instant, more than 20 memories suddenly appeared and surrounded Levi, inserting them into the blank slots on Levi's body at the same time. The eternal aura instantly enveloped Levi, and Huang Qinchin's eyes burst into light. The strongest form of blue flame. Levi's feet tapped the ground lightly, and his whole body was like a cannonball, instantly attacking the destroyer, faster than the blink of an eye. Tony also cooperated with Levi to use the weapons on the battlesuit to attract the destroyer's attention. The eternal aura was absorbed by the eternal dagger, and Levi struck the destroyer with one blow. Crunch! Crunch! The metal collides with a sharp sound. Can't break it. Levi's heart became fierce and he used all his strength and energy. The eternal dagger burst into dazzling blue light, and the destroyer also held down Levi's shoulders at this moment, trying to lift him up and throw him out. Death! With Levi's roar, the blue sword light instantly broke through the destroyer's armor defense, and the light blade slid down and penetrated the destroyer. Tony stepped forward and hugged the destroyer's arm tightly, thrusters on full fire, trying to pry his wrist away to prevent him from continuing to hold Levi's shoulder. The eternal dagger pushed hard inside the destroyer's body. At this moment, Loki on the throne of Asgard was punching the scepter, with sweat on his forehead. In that case, Loki fired hard, urging the destroyer to gather all its energy and release the ray in one direction. The direction of the destroyer's attack is exactly where Thor is. Thor found Jane Foster and was about to take her to a safe place. Just as he walked out of the door, Thor was startled, his hair stood up, and a bad premonition arose in his heart. At this time, a beam of light broke through the building and surged forward, followed by Jane Foster and Asgard's comrades. Thor subconsciously took a step and opened his arms to block them. Call! The ray flooded Thor's body, and time seemed to stop at this moment. Thor saw Odin nodding to him. Thor closed his eyes, and the moment he opened them again, his eyes had been replaced by blue, and his divine power returned. The armor was restored, and Thor carried the destroyer's ray to protect the important people behind him. Loki also realized something. There was a consciousness that was competing with him for control of the destroyer. Father! Loki guessed who it was, but he couldn't give up now. However, Loki's consciousness had not yet returned to the destroyer, and the destroyer took the initiative to cut off contact with him. The upper body of the destroyer on Earth fell down, and its legs standing on the ground were in stark contrast to its upper body. In his final trance, Loki seemed to see a figure with a red cloak flying behind him, a hammer in his hand, thunder and lightning surging, and that thunderous gesture seemed to be able to destroy everything. Thor's divine power has been restored. But who cut off the destroyer? Loki was horrified, since when have there been humans with such strength on Earth? Could it be the human who attacked him? Loki recalled the face wearing a helmet or mask. But that person is not very strong, and Loki feels that he should be able to defeat him without using magic. Chapter 48. After solving the destroyer, Thor did not intend to stay on the Earth any longer. He said to Levi, "I'm sorry for what happened today. Let the destroyer be used to compensate for the losses of human beings. This is my father's armor. Brother, really, feel sorry." When Odin, who was far away in Asgard, heard these words, he immediately wanted to strangle these two useless sons to death. It's really a shame that Tien is so heartbroken. Levi also wanted to keep the destroyer, so he chose to remain silent. Tony accused, "You should apologize in front of the families of the deceased." Thor nodded immediately and said, "I think I will." The three Asgard warriors, Sif and Jane Foster, ran over. Jane recovered from her surprise and reluctantly asked, "Are you leaving?" "I have to go back, there are still things that have not been resolved." "Believe me, I will come back, and I will make up for everything by then." Thor looked around, then raised his hammer to the sky and shouted, "Heimdall!" Asgard 4 people quickly gathered around Thor. The beam of light came. Thor and others disappeared. What happened? It was still such a big town yesterday. Phil Coulson looked at the dilapidated scene of the town and was a little dazed for a while. "Don't be stunned, go and take a look. Rescue the people." Phil Coulson ordered his men anxiously. Soon his subordinates reported seeing Kamen Rider and Iron Man in the town, and Phil Coulson immediately looked for them. "To Mr. Starks, why is the town like this?" Phil Coulson looked confused. Levi and Tony looked at each other, and Levi thought for a moment and replied, Alien invasion." Tony was also full of nonsense, the family ethics of the Norse gods. Phil Coulson slowly typed a question mark. Levi pushed the question to Jane Foster, "You'd better ask this alien girlfriend, she may also be the princess." Phil Coulson felt that this woman looked familiar, as if he had seen her before. After asking Jane Foster to learn about the situation, Phil Coulson was shocked. The strong man he sent to the lunatic asylum turned out to be Thor. Phil Coulson is numb. If Levi hadn't been clamoring for S.H.I.E.L.D. to build an Arkham asylum to house super ability criminals, he wouldn't have thought of sending Thor to the asylum. "Don't worry, Thor was released on bail by an old professor before entering the lunatic asylum. Levi's words made Phil Coulson feel a little more at ease. Okay, I will report the situation here to the director. Phil Coulson sighed, and then took Jane Foster to continue to understand the situation. Levi and Tony were picking up the wreckage of the destroyer. S.H.I.E.L.D. saw this alien weapon and wanted a share of the pie, but was jointly warned by Tony and Levi. The two of us fought, why should we share it with you? You are holding us back in this matter. Phil Coulson, who was even more helpless, had already imagined that Nick Fury's face, which was originally like the bottom of a black pot, turned into red-hot coals, and then scolded him loudly. Tony still sympathizes with the good old Phil Coulson. Phil Coulson, I will suggest to Nick Fury that you take a vacation. As far as Tony knows, Phil Coulson has not taken a vacation in a year. Thank you so much. Phil Coulson sighed, giving up all hope for a vacation, and then went about his own business. Levi and Tony were the only ones left at the location of the destroyer's wreckage, and they looked at each other. Levi showed that he was very tired. What do you want me to do? Call someone. You can't just tie a rope around your waist and carry it back, right? Tony called for help to transport the wreckage of the destroyer back to the Stark building. Levi, who had used the strongest form, lost all his strength and returned to the Stark building with the transport plane. On the way back, there was an episode. The US military wanted to intercept him, but was blocked by Tony's connections. Tony got something good again, and Rhodes came over to watch. In the research room, Tony asked the researchers from the Stark building to put the destroyer together. Although the destroyer is severely shape-shifted, many parts are still intact. Levi leaned through the glass and looked at Tony's busy figure, and then at the destroyer. He wondered if God King Odin, the old bidden, had educated his prodigal son. At the moment, Nick Fury, who arrived in the town, listened to Phil Coulson's detailed report, and his originally dark complexion actually turned red. This was because he was not taking advantage of it, so he was anxious. This time I really didn't catch anything. I wiped my butt too much. Nick Fury has nothing to say about his right-hand man. That's what a good guy is. There are pros and cons. Tony suggested that I let you take a vacation. I thought about it and thought there is a task suitable for you. It's very easy. Vacation. Phil Coulson's eyes gleamed when he heard these two words. Go to a place and pick up someone. I believe you will be happy. Nick Fury asked Maria Hill, who was following behind, to take out a document. Maria Hill handed the document to Phil Coulson. Phil Coulson looked through the documents curiously, his eyes widening as he read, and then a burst of ecstasy. I accept the mission. Go get ready. After sending Phil Coulson away, Hill said to Nick Fury, Director, what about the missing Natasha Romanoff? If nothing else happens, the night should be setting off soon. We may have made too many moves recently, making the other party aware of it. Does the cleaning speed need to be reduced? No need. Instead, we need to use the disappearance of Natasha Romanoff to completely clear out some people. Especially the high-level agents. Let's start with them. After Nick Fury finished speaking, he recalled the familiar figure in his mind, and he had always been taught by the other party. He kept it in mind, but who knew that the other party turned out to be a senior executive of HYDRA? Let's start with him. Levi returned to New York and called Nerissa. It doesn't mean anything else, it's just that I feel like I should do something after taking a few days off. Nerissa's phone number could not be dialed, so Levi simply got on his motorcycle and went straight to the other party's residence. I stood outside the apartment door and knocked for a long time, but no one answered. After asking the neighbors, Levi learned that Nerissa had not been back recently. Restored his identity and went on a mission. Li Wei thought in his mind. Thinking of losing a regular partner, Li Wei felt regretful for a while. Just as he was about to leave, Levi accidentally turned the door handle, and the security door opened, but it was still unlocked. Open the door and walk into the living room. The living room was in a mess, the sofa cushions were overturned to the ground, and there was a broken water glass on the ground. From the blood stains on the glass fragments, it can be concluded that there must have been a fierce struggle. Who would attack the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent? Levi thought, S.H.I.E.L.D. internal reasons? Or HYDRA? Knock knock. Thinking of the knock on the door, Levi returned subconsciously and saw a tall, thin man in a smart suit walking in. Who are you? Chapter 49. The man introduced himself in a gentlemanly manner. Hello, Mr. Levi Stark. I'm S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, Callie Fries. What's the matter with you? Levi looked up at the other person. Califris took out a tablet from his briefcase and handed it to Levi. I think the video inside can answer some questions for you. Levi took the tablet and clicked on the paused video. A simple office appeared in the video, and a red-haired woman wearing a smart tights walked into the screen. Officially Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff. The picture taken is very clear. Nick Fury also walked into the scene behind her, picked up a folder from the desk and handed it to her. There is no sound from the surveillance, but this video has thoughtful subtitles based on lip reading. Nick Fury, this target's information. To get close to him, I need to know everything about him. If possible, I need everything about that battlesuit. Natasha Romanoff deadpanned, in an emotional way. Nick Fury, you are an innocent college student, and you still need me to teach you. I see. Natasha Romanoff leaves the office with the information and the video ends. Califrith added, this is Nick Fury's office. Glancing at Califrith, Levi, who wanted to understand the other party's intention, suddenly changed his expression. With sharp eyes, he said with a smile, you are so considerate, the subtitles are all ready. That's definitely, we hope to reach cooperation with you. Califris said, the current S.H.I.E.L.D. is not peaceful. Minister Alexander Pierce believes that external forces need to be used to bring new life to SHIELD. Nick Fury is likely to be the remnant of HYDRA. Levi suddenly laughed strangely, your minister is indeed right. Your SHIELD really needs to be cleaned up, for example, if you look like a black braised egg. He will make a plan today. Minister Pierce also asked me to give you a video. Califrith picked up the tablet on the coffee table, operated it, and handed it to Levi. Levi took the tablet, and the screen showed a bend in a mountain road. A large truck compacted the line and collided with a small car. The small car completely shape-shifted and a person got out of the truck after the collision. Levi recognized who this man was at a glance, Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier fired several shots at the driver's seat of the car, and a panicked woman ran out from the passenger seat. Winter Soldier raised his gun and fired, and soon the woman fell into a pool of blood. After killing 2 people, Winter Soldier threw a bomb and detonated the car. Califris said at this time, does it look familiar? The people who were killed are your parents. I think you know who the murderer is. Speaking of which, Levi didn't spend much time with the couple. He was still too young at that time, and his relationship was naturally not very deep. But seeing the death of their couple, Levi still felt an unknown fire rising in his heart. The strength of the hand increased, and the tablet computer made a sizzling sound when it was squeezed, and black smoke soon came out. What he didn't expect was that before Tony and Bucky's revenge for killing their father came out, his side came first. Levi stood up and grabbed Califris by the neck. The sudden situation gave the other party no time to react. I would like to know why you killed this couple. Because, they studied. Califris said intermittently, his voice becoming increasingly unclear. Levi let go of Califris and let him breathe. After a long time, he explained, your parents are researchers, affiliated with a certain research institute, conducting biological research. This kind of research later appeared in SHIELD. The finished product was injected by Nick Fury and is called Infinite Serum can make Nick Fury. Before Califris finished speaking, Levi took over and said, the body has stopped aging and its body functions have improved. An infinite serum based on Professor Berthold Sternberg's SSS. So you all know. Initially, Nick Fury wanted to let the two of them join S.H.I.E.L.D. to make this serum for him, but your parents refused. This led to Nick Fury's murderous intention and sent HYDRA's #1 killer, Winter Soldier, and assassination was committed. Levi narrowed his eyes and asked, so, your minister only sent you here? Yes. Let me tell you clearly what happened to S.H.I.E.L.D. Levi nodded, and then asked, where is Nerissa? Since she is Nick Fury's subordinate, he should not kill his subordinates. It was you who did it. Yes, Natasha Romanoff is under house arrest in a safe house. She is Nick Fury's right-hand man and we have to do this. Give me the position. Not to mention the deceitful feelings, you are still Nick Fury's subordinate. I will kill him myself. Califris, how dare you give Levi the position of Natasha Romanoff? Once Natasha Romanoff says something, it will be over. He could only ask Levi to cooperate with him to get rid of Nick Fury first and then deal with Natasha Romanoff. Levi didn't say anything more and left directly. Chapter 50. Not long after Levi left, Kali Frith took out his cell phone and dialed. Minister, the Kamen Rider has fallen into the trap. I understand, come back as soon as possible. Okay. However, just after he hung up the phone, he turned around and walked out of the security door when he saw Levi standing outside the door, staring at him with a smile on his face. Kali Frith suddenly broke into a cold sweat. Before he could speak, Levi reached out and grabbed his neck, carrying him to the roof of the apartment building. I'm confused as to why I came back. I just checked to see if there were any cameras around. Thank you so much for destroying all the cameras when you arrested Black Widow. Levi talked to himself and walked up to the rooftop. Not long after, a figure fell from the roof of the apartment building and hit the car on the street. Levi calmed down. As for Kali Frith's body, he didn't take care of it at all. Someone would collect it for him. It doesn't matter whether Alexander Pierce doubts him or not. After leaving here, Levi received a call from Tony on the way back to the Stark building. Levi, come back quickly. Your Leo cavalry has succeeded. Levi was very happy. He didn't expect Tony to make the Leo cavalry so quickly. The destroyer is such a good thing. Returned to Stark building, Levi came to the laboratory and saw a man wearing simple armor standing next to Tony. Have a look. Is it what you planned? Tony also looked excited. It's very similar, but how did you do it? Levi was surprised. The core of the destroyer can perfectly control the blood flow rate of photons. After saying that, Tony pressed Leo cavalry's chest, the springboard opened, and a bright red core was exposed. This. Levi didn't know whether to cry or laugh. With such a precious thing, he could only make something like the Leo cavalry. But after all, there has been considerable progress. With samples, everything is much simpler. We can imitate this core. Your Emperor and Delta cannot be dismantled at all. It is equivalent to using Happy's graffiti to restore a little boy. But what is the photon runner made of? Tony pursed his lips and said helplessly, explosion-proof glass, the kind that can be installed externally. Just change it to metal. It doesn't matter if you can't see the photon blood. It's not impossible, it just doesn't look good. Tony pursues perfection, and appearance is naturally one of them. The thought of such a rough product is really unpleasant. Fiyu, take off the belt. Fiyu obediently took off his belt, and the transformation was instantly released. How do you feel? Levi asked. Fiyu answered honestly, it doesn't feel like an improvement, but it's not as big as the improvement brought by AO Phase Enoch form. Tony waved his hand, okay, you go out first. After sending Fiyu away, Tony looked at Levi. He always felt that there was something different about Levi today. What's wrong with you? Are you in a bad mood? That girl dumped you. Tony's 3 fatal attacks made Levi, who was already in a bad mood, even worse. Levi sighed, not only that, Narasa's real name is Natasha Romanoff, and she is AS.H.I.E.L.D. agent. So you know. Tony wasn't surprised at all. What do you mean I know everything? You already knew it. Tony patted his chest, after all, I am the consultant of SHIELD. Then don't you want to remind me? Tony said, men will only grow after being hurt. Fart. The boyfriend and girlfriend in school were just joking around. When you get to work, you will find that the other person has no advantages at all. You won't take it seriously, right? Do you think I'm serious? You kid has never revealed anything since you were a child, how do I know? Since men will always grow up after being hurt, I will also give you the news of being hurt. I have found the murderer of my parents and your parents. Tony laughed dumbly, can you? Then he was stunned and looked at Levi in disbelief. What did you say? This is no joke. Tony grabbed Levi's shoulders. You heard me, I already know who the murderer is. Who is it? Tony asked in shock. Alexander Pierce, the former S.H.I.E.L.D. director, is now responsible for contacting the Security Council composed of the world's top 5 gangsters and the top brass of HYDRA. Tell me what happened to you today. Li Wei told the truth, the two of them did not need to hide this kind of thing. Tony also believed that Levi would not deceive him, but what if Levi was deceived by someone else? Tony still chose to investigate first, since he had a target, it would be easier to handle. The only thing that troubles Tony is Bucky Barnes. If it is really the two couples he killed, how should he face him? After all, he had saved himself and protected Pepper. Although they had not known each other for a long time, this homeless veteran who was a veteran of the previous world was really pitiful. We will find out who the culprit is right away. Bucky may want the other to die more than the two of us. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.